Chapter 894. The last time Li Yundong had entered the purple gold luo jade plate was during the Divine Tribulation. At that time all the mountains, rivers in the spirit space had been smashed into pieces, but when he came in again, it was already as good as before. When Li Yundong first entered the spirit space, he was on guard against the mystical silver fox's sneak attack, so he was highly vigilant. But after he came in he found nothing unusual. He was in an extremely wide and vast world. He fixed his eyes on it and saw that in the distance, there was a blue sky that he could not see the end of. Under his feet was a land of rolling mountains. The land was lush with vegetation as if it was in prehistoric times. There were many birds flying in the jungle and the birds were chirping, which was fresh and pleasant. This was the first time that Su Chan and Zhou Qin had come to this spirit space. At first glance, they were shocked by the amazing beauty of the scenery. They saw that the sky was blue without any impurities, like a huge gem, but the mountains and forests under their feet were dazzling, especially the green grassland in the distance. It was flat and green as if water was about to soak out, making people want to gallop on the grassland. They withdrew their gazes and saw that there was a winding river flowing along the foot of the mountain in the mountains under their feet, like a bright necklace hanging on the neck of a girl. A gust of wind blew and the water was sparkling, dazzling and dazzling. For a moment, everyone almost forgot the threat of the mystical silver fox, and they were a little shocked and lost in front of the magnificence of nature. After a while, Zhou Qin sighed softly and said, "I didn't expect that there would be such a magical scenery in this powerful magical weapon. It's really incredible." Su Chan's eyes were wide open, and her face showed a strong yearning. She thought to herself, if one day I can spend the rest of my life with Yundong in such a paradise, I won't be ashamed to walk in this world. The little girl's mind flashed with thoughts. She pulled Li Yundong's arm and said softly, "Yundong, did you hide in here when you avoided the divine tribulation last time?" Li Yundong nodded slightly. Su Chan and Zhou Qin were fascinated by this amazing scenery, and he didn't dare to be careless at all. He released his aura and was alert to the surroundings. He said in a low voice, "Yes, but last time this purple gold jade plate was destroyed by the divine tribulation." Su Chan asked curiously, "Did the spirit space also collapse? What does it look like?" Li Yundong smiled and said, "You have to ask Ziyuan. At that time I had already been struck by heavenly thunder. Only she knows what it was like." Su Chan turned her head to look at Ziyuan. Ziyuan smiled at her and said softly, "I'll tell you when we get back, but I don't think you want to know. That scene was too terrible. I don't want to see it again." Su Chan secretly stuck out her tongue and didn't ask any more questions. She also looked around vigilantly and nervously. But after looking for a while, she found that the spirit space was extremely large and far away. It was frighteningly quiet all around. Except for the sound of the wind, birds, and the sound of the waterfall in the forest, there was no other sound. It didn't seem like there was any danger at all. The little girl asked softly, "Yundong, if the mystical silver fox hides, where will she hide? This lesser kiliacosm is so big, how are we going to find it?" This question could be considered to have hit the nail on the head. Li Yundong was a little worried about this matter in his heart. He had expected that the mystical silver fox might attack him when he had just entered the spirit space. Therefore, as soon as Li Yundong came in, he was highly vigilant and kept the most powerful spiritual energy in Jinchi. But after coming in, he found that nothing had happened, which made him feel as if he had punched the air, which was very uncomfortable. He didn't expect that if the mystical silver fox didn't come to hit him, what should he do? In Li Yundong's impression, how could an arrogant and domineering person like the mystical silver fox not take the initiative to attack? But if she was hiding in this spirit space, it would be very troublesome to find her. When he had been addicted to the burning thumb pot, he had stayed for tens of thousands of years. One burning thumb pot had 3,000 worlds and 80,000 mortal worlds. It seemed that the purple gold jade plate was not much better. If it was like the burning thumb pot, they would search inch by inch. Even if they all became old men and old women, they might not be able to find it. Seeing that Li Yundong was thinking with his head down, Zhou Qin knew that he was in a dilemma. She smiled bitterly and said, "This spirit space is so big. Even if we use the yang spirit to find it, it will take a long time, right?" As she said this, she turned to Ziyuan and said, "Ziyuan, how big is the spirit space in this purple gold jade plate?" Ziyuan also said helplessly, "Do you know the Buddhist saying of Mount Sumeru in a mustard seed?" Mustard seed was the collective name of mustard and chestnut. Buddhists used mustard seed to describe extremely small things, while Sumeru referred to Mount Sumeru, the largest of the 3,000 worlds of Buddhism. There was no mountain in the world that was bigger and taller than this. However, the Buddhists believed that Mount Sumeru could be accommodated in a mustard seed, which coincided with the idea of Taoist cultivators. Taoist cultivators believed that the human body furnace was a small universe, and the world of heaven and earth was a big universe. This small universe could not only be integrated with the big universe, but it could also contain the big universe with the small universe. This was the idea of the unity of heaven and man. Ziyuan's words were to tell Zhou Qin that the purple gold jade plate was as big as the universe. Zhou Qin was shocked when she heard this. She knew that no matter how powerful a cultivator was, even if the yang spirit went out of his body to find a life in the universe, it would be like looking for a needle in the sea. It was completely unreliable. She said, "What should we do? Why don't we split up and look for it?" Li Yundong immediately shook his head and said, "It's useless to shake your head. I have a way." Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin asked at the same time, "What is it?" Li Yundong looked at Ziyuan with a smile and said, "Have you forgotten the 8 great freedoms that I comprehended in the 3,000 small worlds of the burning thumb pot?" Ziyuan suddenly understood. You want to use your avatar to look for it?" Li Yundong nodded with a smile. The 8 great freedoms of Buddhism believed that the avatars of cultivators could be big or small, far or near, few or many. They could change infinitely and turn stone into gold. At this time, Li Yundong had cultivated to the highest level. Although the world was big, his yang spirit avatar could transform into countless incarnations. He was everywhere in the world. Li Yundong said, "That's right, but we have to find a place first. Don't stand in the air all the time. It's very disadvantageous for the enemy to be in the dark while I'm in the light. When I clone later, you must protect me. If the mystical silver fox attacks at this time, you only need to hold her back for a few seconds and my clone can quickly return." Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin nodded one after another. They followed Li Yundong, restrained their auras, lowered their heads and flew toward the dense forest on the ground. The forest in the spirit space was not only dense, but also full of spiritual qi. In addition, Li Yundong and the others carefully hid their auras. Once they got into the mountain range, even the immortal sky eyes couldn't find them. Li Yundong, Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin found an extremely secluded cave. After nodding to Su Chan and the others, he sat down cross-legged. With a thought, the yang spirit immediately came out of its shell. At first there was only one yang spirit avatar, but as soon as it flew out of the cave, it split into 2 and flew to the left and right sides. The 2 yang spirits on the left and right sides split into 4 and flew to the east, south, west and north. Then the 4 yang spirits split into 8 avatars and flew in 8 directions. In just a short while, countless avatars appeared in the world and flew in all directions of the spirit space. The universe of heaven and earth could be said to be infinite, but human yang spirit could also be infinite. Li Yundong's yang spirit continued to search the spirit space. Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin looked around nervously, for fear that the mystical silver fox would suddenly appear at this time and give them a thunderous blow. In the last battle, this incomparably powerful mystical silver fox had left a very deep impression on them. However, they were nervous for a long time until Li Yundong, who was beside them, suddenly woke up from his meditation and opened his eyes, but there was still no trace of the mystical silver fox. Su Chan was the most impatient. As soon as she saw Li Yundong wake up, she immediately asked in a low voice, "How is it? Have you found it?" Li Yunyang shook his head with a puzzled face. "No, my yang spirit doppelgangers have turned into hundreds of millions of people. They have almost searched all over the spirit space, but they still can't find any trace of the mystical silver fox. It's really strange. Where can she hide?" After hearing this, Zhou Qin turned her head and looked at Ziyuan in confusion. Is it possible that she escaped from this powerful magical weapon by herself? Ziyuan shook her head and said, "That's impossible. Li Yundong carries this powerful magical weapon with him every day. If the mystical silver fox escapes from it, he can't not feel it. Moreover, if this powerful magical weapon wants to come out, either the owner of the powerful magical weapon will bring this person out, or the yang spirit avatar will be smashed in this spirit space." Hearing this, Zhou Qin and Su Chan looked at each other and asked in unison, "Where is the mystical silver fox?" Li Yundong was also puzzled. They had all watched the mystical silver fox escape into the purple gold luo jade plate, but they didn't know where she had gone in the end. This was really strange. Li Yundong thought for a moment and was a little unwilling to give up. He said, "This time I'll go to the 9th heaven and the 9th earth in this spirit space to look for it. You can help me keep an eye on it." After that, he turned into hundreds of millions of avatars again and went up to the sky and down to the ground. But after a long time, when Li Yundong's countless avatars flew back from all directions, he still found nothing. At this time, Li Yundong was shocked and confused. He couldn't understand where the mystical silver fox had hidden. Was she still in this spirit space? If she was here, why couldn't he find her? If she wasn't here, when did she escape? How did she escape? Where was she now? Thinking of this, Li Yundong felt a headache. There was one more thing at night. Chapter 895. Li Yundong, Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and Zhou Qin looked at each other in dismay. Although one of them was the famous reincarnated wisdom king in the cultivation world of China, and the other three were the famous heaven, human, and fox immortals, they could only stare helplessly in such a situation. Li Yundong felt that what was happening in front of him was really absurd. He looked at Zi Yuan helplessly and subconsciously wanted to ask her for help, but at this time, Zi Yuan also looked at him helplessly and shook her head. "Don't look at me. I don't know what's going on." Li Yundong looked at Su Chan again and said, "Is there any way to hide in the Fox Zen school and not let the opponent find us at all?" Su Chan thought for a moment and said, "There is. However, with your current realm, it's impossible for you to find a person. I think even the mystical silver fox can't hide completely and not be found by you." Li Yundong pondered for a while and asked, "Is it possible that we are all under an illusion, or is this small world full of magic and illusion?" At this time, Zi Yuan immediately shook her head and said, "That's absolutely impossible. No, it should be said that anyone can use magic and illusion, but only the mystical silver fox or the other fox spirits of the Fox Zen school can't use this kind of magic in the small world of this powerful magical weapon." Su Chan, who was standing to one side, asked curiously, "Why is that?" Zi Yuan said, "This purple gold Luo Yupan is the personal magic weapon of great Jinren Luo Gongyuan of the Tang dynasty. It is a Taoist treasure." Su Chan blinked her eyes and said, "Luo Gongyuan? I know that he is on the same level as Zhang Guolao, one of the 8 immortals of the Tang dynasty, and great Jinren Yi fashion. The Taoist assembly was held by them together. However, what does this have to do with us fox spirits being unable to use magic and illusion in the small world of this powerful magical weapon?" Zi Yuan said, "Luo Gongyuan once fought with someone in front of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang. The two sides agreed to fix a rui in mid-air, and whoever could make the rui fall would win. In the beginning, Luo Gongyuan exerted all his strength but was unable to make this rui fall. Later, he used the pretext of performing a ritual and left his body in the main hall, while his yang spirit used the goddess Nenya seal to quietly leave. He went to the far north in search of Zijin and specially refined this magical weapon. After Luo Gongyuan refined this magic treasure for 3 days and 3 nights, his yang spirit threw this magic treasure into the air. Immediately, the rui scepter fell, and the opponent had to admit defeat. Afterward, Tang Xuanzong curiously asked Luo Gongyuan how he did it. Zhang Guolao and Vajra Sanzang couldn't do it before. Luo Gongyuan said that the opponent used the power of the fox spirit to fix the rui scepter, so he refined the purple gold Luo disc, which was specially aimed at the power of the fox spirit, to seal and restrain the opponent's demon aura. Therefore, when the U disc rose into the air, the fox spirit was afraid and fled. Zi Yuan said with confidence, "The purple gold Luo disc hardly has any actual combat power. It was originally a sealing prop used by Luo Gongyuan to restrain the power of the fox spirit. But as time went on, this powerful magical weapon was gradually developed into an auxiliary prop by Taoist cultivators, so that cultivators could concentrate on cultivation in the small world, so as to obtain more time and strength. However, its real function has slowly been forgotten by the world. Therefore, any cultivator who comes to this small kiliacosm can use magic and illusion, but only the mystical silver fox can't, because she is a fox demon. The mystical silver fox can use her Buddhist magic and fox demon body unimpeded in this small kiliacosm, because her cultivation has reached the saint level, far beyond the scope of a fox demon. Her Dharma power and Jinqi do not reveal demonic qi, but reveal a powerful and vast Buddhist and Taoist qi. But if she wants to use the magic and illusion of the Fox Zen school, she must use the demon aura of the fox spirit itself, and this demon aura is naturally restrained by this powerful magical weapon. Therefore, it is impossible for the mystical silver fox to release any magic and illusion in this powerful magical weapon." Li Jiandong, Su Chan, and Zhou Qin suddenly understood. Li Jiandong thought for a moment and asked Zi Yuan, "In your opinion, where should the mystical silver fox go now? Will she still be in this small world?" Ziyuan hesitated for a while, gritted her teeth and said, "In fact, there is a way to find out if the mystical silver fox is in this small world." Hearing her words, Li Jiandong immediately understood. He shook his head like a drum and said, No, I know what you mean. You want to destroy this powerful magical weapon. Once this powerful magical weapon is destroyed, the small world inside will also collapse and be destroyed. In this case, the mystical silver fox will naturally have no place to hide. She will either be destroyed with the small world or escape by herself. But what about Chao Kefi's soul and divine sense? Moreover, this is the powerful magical weapon of your Lingong sect. How can you tell your master's spirit in heaven if it is destroyed? No, this method absolutely won't work. Seeing that Li Jiandong had denied it so straightforwardly, Ziyuan sighed softly and said, "Then there's nothing I can do." Li Jiandong frowned and hesitated. Zhou Qin, who was beside him, advised, "Master, why don't we just go out first and then think of a way? I think there must be some mysterious change that we don't know. Otherwise it wouldn't be like this." Li Jiandong thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Soon, the yang spirits of the four of them moved and came out of the Zijin Luo Pan. They returned to their own bodies. They had stayed in the small world for a long time, but it was only the blink of an eye outside. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao saw that they had just gone in, and then they quickly came out. Ruan Hongling said in surprise, "You came out just like that? How is it? Where is the mystical silver fox? Is she dead?" Li Jiandong and the others looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Ziyuan sighed and said, "If she died so easily, she wouldn't be the mystical silver fox." Ruan Hongling was slightly surprised. "What happened?" Zhou Qin sighed and said, "The mystical silver fox has flown away. It's gone?" Ruan Hongling's eyes widened. "What? Gone? A perfectly fine person, no such a powerful fox demon, why would he disappear for no reason?" Zhou Qin shook her head and said, "You just said that she was so powerful, so she disappeared into thin air." Lin Miao, on the other hand, had no idea what was going on. He was watching from the side. Li Jiandong had specially gone to Mount Koya to get the Fazhen of the reincarnated Wisdom King. He was ready to enter the Zijin Luo Pan and completely kill the mystical silver fox. However, he didn't expect that he would get nothing and he had no clue at all. This feeling made him very uneasy, as if there was a pair of eyes staring at him from behind. The enemy was in the dark and he was in the light, which made him feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. However, Li Jiandong's cultivation was already very profound, and he was also very shrewd. Although he was anxious in his heart, his face was still as calm as water. No one could see that he was worried at all. He turned to Su Chan, Ziyuan and the others and said, "I'll think about what's going on alone. You can go and do your own things." The little girl and Ziyuan also knew that he was worried, and the pressure on his shoulders must be very great. They were very considerate and didn't disturb him anymore. Instead, they watched him go out of the room. Of course, the few of them couldn't be busy, so they gathered their heads together and guessed the whereabouts of the mystical silver fox one by one. Li Jiandong walked out of the room with a heavy heart. He was still carrying the Zijin Luo Pan with him. He held the powerful magical weapon in one hand and gently stroked it with the other. He was quickly guessing what had gone wrong. Why did the mystical silver fox disappear? He walked out of Ziyuan's residence alone, took out the key and entered his own residence. As soon as he opened the door, he saw the little foxes gathered together to watch TV. He didn't know if it was because Su Chan had set a very bad example. The little girl didn't like cultivation very much and liked to play. After these little foxes went down the mountain, they were also infected with these stupid diseases. In addition to the fixed course of cultivation, they stayed in front of the TV all day long and watched TV. These little girls couldn't play well with computers. That thing was a little complicated for them, but TV was much simpler. They could always press up, down, left and right? They could press whatever they wanted to see. If they really couldn't, they could scan back and forth with the up and down keys. Although the departure of Ao Wushuang, Chao Yi and Lu Yuehong had been a huge blow to them, this did not hinder the little foxes' love for TV shows. Before they had watched TV happily, but now they were just listless. In the past they used to watch TV in groups of 2s and 3s, but now they were lying down or lying on their stomachs watching TV. Their mood was different, so their posture was different. Looking at their expressions, Li Yundong couldn't help but burst into laughter. He shook his head secretly and admired their optimistic spirit of crying and letting it be over. When the little foxes saw Li Yundong enter the room, they all tried to get up and greet him. Li Yundong smiled and waved his hand at them, indicating that they should do what they were doing and leave him alone. The little foxes didn't stand on ceremony. They stood up symbolically and called him leader sweetly. Then they turned their eyes to the TV again. At this time Ling Yu, who was holding the remote control in her hand, scanned the TV stations, but she still couldn't find anything she wanted to watch. She was about to transfer the remote control to someone else when she suddenly heard a news broadcast from the TV station. At 1:35 p.m. yesterday, an earthquake occurred near Yingtan in Jiangxi province. The epicenter of the earthquake was the famous tourist attraction Mount Longhu. A local tourist peak collapsed and the mountain was damaged, but there were no casualties. The little fox Ling Yu asked curiously, "Leader, didn't this happen 2 days ago? Why did it only report today?" Li Yundong was about to enter the door when he turned around and said with a smile, "This kind of thing will only be reported when it can't be hidden anymore. What's so strange about hiding it for a day or two? No one died." As soon as he finished speaking, a little fox next to him suddenly said in a sobbing tone, "Nonsense, little Shishu Wushuang is dead." But soon another little fox retorted, "Who said that? Little Shishu Wushuang just sealed herself. She's not dead." But this immediately caused a heated debate. The little foxes said at once, "If this is not death, then what is death? Must her body and soul be destroyed?" Little Shishu Wushuang said she would wait for Wang Yuanshan to come back, but can she wait? Ba, you jinx. Can't you say something nice? Now Chao Yi Sherbua is gone, and Lu Yuehong Sherbua doesn't want us anymore. Can't we keep some memories? Li Yundong listened to their bickering and shook his head secretly. He pushed open the door of his room and walked in. After entering the room, he sat down cross-legged on the bed and placed the purple gold luo pan in front of him. Looking at the purple gold magic treasure floating in the air slowly rotating, he frowned and thought to himself. Just as he was thinking about it, he heard a soft knock on the door. Li Yundong said without hesitation, "Come in." With a squeak, the door was pushed open. It was the golden-haired Lin Miao who walked in timidly. Li Yundong saw her at a glance and asked curiously, "It's you? What can I do for you?" Lin Miao nodded, looking a little hesitant. She took a deep breath, gathered up her courage and said, "Master, I think I know where the mystical silver fox might be." Li Yundong was so shocked that he jumped up from the bed. "What? I don't even know. Ziyuan has been cultivating for more than 10 years. Even such a knowledgeable person doesn't know. How can you, a foreign devil who hasn't even entered the cultivation sect, know? What's the reason? Finally, I'm back in Suzhou again. Alas, my father-in-law is an old intellectual. Every day he rests at sunset and works at sunrise. At 7:30 he watches the news and the weather forecast and goes to bed on time. The next day he gets up at 4:30, washes at home, and goes out to the park at 5 o'clock. He repeats day and night and never changes. My father-in-law is small. His house is only about 40 square meters. He can hear everything clearly. Poor me, I fall asleep at 1 or 2 o'clock every day and wake up at 4 or 5 o'clocks. I really don't know how I've been through these days. The last time I went back to Shanghai to take care of my father-in-law, it was a hot summer. There was no air conditioner in the old Mount Tai's house, and the electric fan was not turned on, so I took my wife to live in a hotel. I didn't suffer much. This time the weather is cool, but I have no excuse to live out. There are gains and losses. Chapter 896. Li Yundong looked at Lin Miao in shock. He couldn't believe his ears. Do you know the whereabouts of the mystical silver fox? Being stared at by Li Yundong, Lin Miao hurriedly waved her hand and said, No, I should say a little bit. Li Yundong didn't stand on ceremony with her. He quickly came to her side and asked, Where is the mystical silver fox? Lin Miao took a deep breath and said, In fact, I don't know the specific whereabouts. Master, you are so powerful but you don't know her whereabouts. How could I know? But I think you seem to have gotten into a dead end. Li Yundong asked curiously, A dead end? Lin Miao nodded and said, Yes, master, you should know that when the police handle a case in order to find out the truth, they often reorganize the case. Reorganize the case? Li Yundong was stunned and slightly sank. He couldn't help but nod and say, Do you mean that if I replay the situation at that time, I can probably guess what happened? Lin Miao nodded slightly and smiled embarrassedly. That's all I can think of. I don't know if I can help you. Li Yundong smiled and nodded at her. What you said makes sense. We might as well give it a try according to what you said. Seeing that Li Yundong had agreed, Lin Miao was overjoyed. I hope it works. Li Yundong smiled and took her out of the room to Ziyuan's residence. When Ziyuan heard the sound of the door, she looked back and saw that Li Yundong had returned. When she saw Li Yundong's expression, she smiled and said, "Have you thought of the reason?" Li Yundong smiled and pointed to Lin Miao, who was beside him, and said, "Her words woke me up." As he spoke, he stretched out 4 fingers and said, "For words reorganize the case." In this room, whether it was Su Chan, Zi Yuan or Zhou Qin, they were all extremely smart women. They immediately understood it. They suddenly exclaimed and said, "Yes, why didn't we think of it?" The little girl blinked her eyes and asked, "Do we still have to go to Mount Koya?" Li Yundong smiled and said, "There's no need to go." After being pointed out by Lin Miao, I think the disappearance of the mystical silver fox should be mainly focused on the 2 powerful magical weapons, the purple gold luo disc and the azure glass mirror. I think maybe if we reenact the scene at that time we should know the reason. "I'll be there soon," Zi Yuan thought for a moment, then nodded slightly and said, "This is also the best way now." Li Yundong nodded and suddenly said with some embarrassment, "It's not difficult to reproduce the scene, but I don't know who will act as the mystical silver fox?" As soon as he finished speaking, someone beside him tugged at his arm. It was Su Chan, who was looking at him expectantly. She tapped her nose with her snow-white finger and said, "Me? Of course it's me." Li Yundong looked at Su Chan worriedly. "Aren't you afraid that something might happen? It's not fun to have your soul searched by the sky-piercing glass mirror. What if something goes wrong?" The little girl shook her head stubbornly and grabbed his arm tightly with both hands. "I'm not afraid. You're here, aren't you?" Li Yundong looked at the little girl lovingly and said with a smile, "Okay, I'll go with you, okay?" As he said this, he looked at Zi Yuan and said, "Zi Yuan, I'll have to trouble you." She hesitated for a moment and said, "But no one knows what the consequences will be. If anything goes wrong, Li Yundong knew that she was calm and worried. To put it nicely, she was thorough in her actions. To put it bluntly, she was overcautious in her actions. He smiled and said, "There is no perfect thing in the world. If you want to find out the whereabouts of the mystical silver fox, this is the only way now. However, I don't think there should be any risk. Moreover, the purple gold luo pan and the sky-piercing glass mirror are both your powerful magical weapons. It's the best thing for you to control them." Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, thought for a moment and also advised, "Yes, Zi Yuan, I'm not familiar with these 2 powerful magical weapons. Besides, there's no other way now. Let's stall for 1 more second." Zi Yuan was a little worried, but when she saw that Li Yundong, Su Chan and Zhou Qin were all insistent, she couldn't say anything more. She sighed softly and said, "Well, since you all say so, let's give it a try." As she said this, she said to Li Yundong very cautiously, "If you feel anything wrong, you must tell me immediately, and I will immediately stop the spell." Li Yundong had obtained the Wisdom King's Fazhen, and his strength and momentum were at their peak. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, this little difficulty won't be a problem for me." Although his words were flat, a sense of disdain for anyone in the world arose spontaneously. Seeing that Li Yundong was full of confidence, Zi Yuan also smiled slightly. She gently touched the hair next to her forehead and said, "Well, I'll give it a try." Li Yundong smiled and took both the purple gold luo pan and the sky-piercing glass mirror into his hands. He erased all the spiritual energy and jinqi that belonged to him, and then put them in her hands. At this time, Zi Yuan was already a great master in the Thunder Retribution realm. Although these powerful magical weapons were ownerless, when she poured her spiritual energy and jinqi into them, it was only a matter of an instant. Soon, these 2 powerful magical weapons were filled with her jinqi and spiritual energy, and once again became her own powerful magical weapons. Zi Yuan looked around and said, "I'm afraid this room is too small. I think we'd better find a more secluded and spacious place." When using the purple gold luo pan to cast spells, the caster must not be disturbed in any way, so the spaciousness of the place was secondary. Safety and concealment were more important. Li Yundong nodded and said, "After thinking about it, the Taoist field of the Fox Zen School in Mount Tianlong is the most suitable. Moreover, the stone cave is quite secluded, so we don't have to worry about being disturbed by others." Everyone nodded in agreement, and they once again flew to Dongwu City. By the time they arrived at Mount Tianlong, it was already evening. When they entered the stone cave, it was even darker around them. They couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. After Su Chan, Zi Yuan, and the others used magic to light up flames around them, the stone cave was brightly lit. Zi Yuan had also been to this stone cave before. She saw that the stone cave was 5 or 6 meters high and 30 or 40 meters in diameter, which was suitable for such a magic casting experiment. Zi Yuan left the purple gold luo pan in the middle of the stone cave. She held the sky-reaching glass mirror and said to Li Yundong and Su Chan, "Are you two ready?" Li Yundong and Su Chan looked at each other and smiled. They interlocked their fingers and said with a smile, "Yes." Li Yundong said with a smile, "It's not like we're going to be separated forever. Why are you so serious?" Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, also wanted to try with Li Yundong, but she saw that Li Yundong and Su Chan were holding hands so tightly that there was no gap between them. As soon as she opened her mouth, she immediately closed it again. She sighed softly in her heart and didn't say the words that were on the tip of her tongue. At this time, Ziyuan was shouldering a heavy responsibility, so she was not in the mood to pay attention to her little daughter's affairs. She had a vague feeling that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. She could only take one step at a time. When she came to the air, she urged her Jinshi to mobilize the sky-reaching glass mirror, and a straight colorful light hit Li Yundong and Su Chan suddenly. The figures of Li Yundong and Su Chan became a little distorted and blurred. Then, on the surface of the sky-reaching glass mirror, two figures slowly appeared. At first it was a skeleton, but it slowly became bloody and rosy, and gradually turned into the human figures of Li Yundong and Su Chan. When Ziyuan was fighting with the mystical silver fox, she didn't see the figures in the spirit mirror with her own eyes. At this time she saw that the two of them looked exactly the same as real people, but she saw them gradually become bloody and plump from the terrifying and ferocious skeletons. The change was really a little creepy. Moreover, she also knew that when she extracted the souls of Li Yundong and Su Chan, if she didn't put their souls into the purple gold luo pan in time, if they were really pulled into the mirror body, it would lead to a great tragedy. Such a serious consequence. Even though Ziyuan was a calm person, she couldn't help but have cold sweat on her forehead at this time. Ziyuan nervously mobilized her Jinshi and separated the souls of Li Yundong and Su Chan from their respective human cauldrons. When their souls flew out, it seemed to others that it was extremely slow, but Ziyuan felt as if the souls of these two people would be locked in the celestial glaze mirror by her carelessness in the next second. She didn't dare to stay any longer. Soon, the mirror turned over, and the colorful divine light shone on the purple gold luo pan. Suddenly, the souls of Li Yundong and Su Chan were thrown straight into the purple gold luo pan. Zhou Qin and Lin Miao, who were next to them, both widened their eyes and looked over. They saw that as soon as the souls of Li Yundong and Su Chan came into contact with the purple gold luo pan, their figures immediately disappeared, just like the previous mystical silver fox. Zhou Qin immediately said to Ziyuan, "Ziyuan, stop. Hurry up and go into the purple gold luo pan to take a look." Ziyuan immediately put away the sky-reaching glass mirror. With a move of her body, her yang spirit went into the purple gold luo pan, and Zhou Qin's yang spirit also went in with her. Only Lin Miao was left to stare at them, feeling anxious. While Lin Miao was gritting his teeth anxiously, he saw Ziyuan and Zhou Qin quickly come out again. Their pretty faces were pale, and after they came out they looked indescribably panicked. Lin Miao's heart skipped a beat and he immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Ziyuan's face was extremely ugly. She frowned tightly as if she was thinking about something quickly. Her body was trembling slightly, and it was unknown whether she was afraid or worried. Zhou Qin said in a slightly trembling voice, "I can't find Master and Su Chan anywhere in the purple gold luo pan." As she said this, she looked at Ziyuan in fear. "Ziyuan, what should we do? Where on earth have they gone?" After hearing this, Lin Miao's eyes widened and he thought to himself, "Oh my god, no way? The two of them disappeared just like that? Is this a big change? I just got home. I'll write a chapter before eating. After eating, I'll continue with the second chapter. I'll eat first." Chapter 897. The wonderful thing about changing a living person was that it could make a living person disappear under one's nose, and then instantly change back. It was wonderful to make a living person disappear, but it would be a little bad if it couldn't be changed back after it disappeared. Soon, Ziyuan and Zhou Qin were so shocked that they broke out in a cold sweat. The two women, who usually remained calm in the face of Mount Tai collapsing in front of them, were completely at a loss at this time. They quickly rushed over to Li Yundong and Su Chan, feeling their pulses and pressing their acupoints. But when they probed, they found that the souls, divine senses and yang spirit Jinshin in Li Yundong and Su Chan's bodies had all been stolen. There were only 2 empty bodies left. This scared the two of them a lot. They looked at each other, their faces as pale as paper and their eyes were hollow. Zhou Qin asked Ziyuan in a panic, but how could Ziyuan know the answer? She only felt that her mind was buzzing, as if an atomic bomb had exploded. The explosion made her dizzy, and the qi and blood in her body were in a mess. At this time, even if a little child were to stab her with a knife, she would probably fall down on her back. Zhou Qin saw that Ziyuan was a little strange. She quickly reached out her hand and pressed on the Lingtai acupoint on Ziyuan's back. Only then did the qi in Ziyuan's body become smooth and she came to her senses. Ziyuan's beautiful face turned pale, and she said in a trembling voice, "It's all my fault. I knew something would happen. Something really happened. It's all my fault." Zhou Qin saw that Ziyuan was already in a panic and felt extremely guilty. Although she was even more flustered than Ziyuan, she knew that she couldn't panic. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. One of them had to calm down. Zhou Qin quickly persuaded, "Ziyuan, how can you be blamed for this? Who would know what was going on? Maybe there was an accident? Or maybe Master was just joking with us." Zhou Qin didn't believe her own words. If Li Yundong had just reached the Zhuji phase, he might have made a joke with them. But now, Li Yundong's cultivation was getting higher and higher, and he was already the strongest person in the world. Not only did he have the strength of the strongest person in the world, but he also had the bearing and style of the strongest person in the world. How could such a person make such a joke with them at this critical moment? Therefore, there was only one possibility. "You're almost there," and this kind of accident really made it hard for people to think in a good way. At the end of her words, Zhou Qin lowered her voice and looked gloomy. Persuading others made her even more depressed. This was really too depressing. Lin Miao, on the other hand, did not have a high cultivation base like them and did not understand the severity of the situation. She mustered up her courage and asked, "Perhaps Master and the rest have already returned?" These words made both Ziyuan and Zhou Qin jump up and rush out of the stone cave like a gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared, leaving Lin Miao standing alone in the huge stone cave. Lin Miao was dumbfounded as he looked at the direction where the two of them left. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Hey, don't leave me behind. How can I go back alone?" At this moment, she had never felt so helpless and distressed. Even when she had traveled thousands of miles to China to seek Tao, she had never felt discouraged. But now, Lin Miao realized how insignificant and helpless everything he had been proud of was in this world of cultivation. Not only could she not help her master, but she had also become a huge burden. It was even a problem for her to go back alone. It was the middle of the night in the wilderness. How could she go down the mountain and take a car? Lin Miao was in a daze when she saw Zhou Qin rush back like a gust of wind. She grabbed her like a sack and rushed out. Her strength was so great that her whole body almost flew up. Fortunately, Lin Miao's body had been transformed by the Diuan Jindan, so it was far stronger than ordinary people. Otherwise, Zhou Qin's pull would have dislocated her arm. Zhou Qin pulled her and said quickly without looking back, "Let's go. You will be there soon." Although Zhou Qin and Ziyuan knew that it was impossible for Li Jiandong to leave them here for no reason and suddenly appear at home at this time, they were really terrified and helpless. They grabbed hold of a life-saving straw and refused to let go. No matter how ridiculous the speculation was, they were willing to believe it. When the three of them rushed home, Ruan Hongling was cultivating in the living room. She saw a gust of wind blowing in her face, and then three figures appeared in front of her. She took a closer look and couldn't help but say angrily, "Shiji Ziyuan, what are you doing? You scared me to death. Fortunately, I am in a shallow state of meditation. Otherwise, I would have been frightened by you." Although the two of them were not real sisters, they were as close as brothers and sisters. If she said such jokes on a normal day, Ziyuan would have to tease and quarrel with her. However, Ziyuan didn't even look at her. She swept past her like a gust of wind and immediately searched all the rooms in her residence. Ziyuan knew that it was impossible for Li Jiandong to be at home, but she still broke into every room. Every time she broke into a room, her heart sank a little. After searching her own residence, she gritted her teeth and wanted to break into the residence of Li Jiandong and the little foxes across the street. Zhou Qin was still a little calm. She hugged her and advised, "Ziyuan, don't go. Master will definitely not be there." Ling Yu and the others have finally recovered from the departure of Chao Yi and Lu Yuehong. If you go now, they will definitely be in a mess. At that time we will be completely alone. On the side, Ruan Hongling looked at her senior sister dumbfoundedly. She had never seen her senior sister so flustered. Even when she first heard the news of Wang Yuanshan's death, she just hid alone and secretly shed tears for a while. When she came out again, she had already regained her calmness and composure. It was only a few minutes difference between the two. Ruan Hongling couldn't help but ask, "Sister Ziyuan, what happened? Don't scare me. What's going on?" After all, Ziyuan was a reasonable woman. When she was stopped by Zhou Qin, her body finally swayed and she almost fell into Zhou Qin's arms. She forced herself not to fall and sat down in the sand. One hand tightly grasped the edge of the sand, the other clenched into a fist, trembling slightly. Her eyes were full of tears and she whispered, "Li Jiandong and Su Chan. They're all gone. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let them try." Ruan Hongling was shocked and horrified. How could two living people disappear? What's going on? At this time, Zhou Qin explained the whole matter to Ruan Hongling in a low voice, and then said, "We don't know the situation, let alone the result of this matter. We shouldn't act rashly now. Ziyuan, don't worry. Let's think about it carefully. What on earth is going on?" As she spoke, she took a deep breath, closed her eyes and tried to calm herself down. After thinking for a while she said, "When this Tong Tian glass mirror and the Zijin Luo disc are used together, will there be any special effects? Did your master ever tell you about this, Ziyuan?" Although Ziyuan was still blaming herself, after all, her cultivation was profound and her willpower was good. She gradually recovered. She calmed down and thought for a long time before saying in a hoarse voice, "No, my master never told me what the result would be if these two powerful magical weapons were used together." Zhou Qin was a little disappointed. She whispered, "Then what on earth is going on?" Ruan Hongling, who was standing to one side, couldn't help but say, "Could it be that the combination of these two powerful magical weapons destroyed both of their souls?" Ziyuan immediately raised her head and said in a trembling voice, "Hongling, don't talk nonsense." Zhou Qin also glared at her fiercely. "Even if you die, my master won't." Ruan Hongling immediately covered her mouth with both hands and said with a wry smile, "I'm just thinking about the worsts. I don't want anything to happen to the two of them. Li Yundong is now a rich man. In the future, I still have to count on him to give me money to spend, not to mention Su Chan. Don't you know my relationship with Chaner? I'm just a child. The wind blows." Neither Ziyuan nor Zhou Qin was in the mood to pay attention to her. Their eyes kept rolling in their sockets trying to come up with a solution. Lin Miao also lowered his head, not knowing where to put his hands. Seeing that the two of them were in such a panic, Lin Miao couldn't help but whisper, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. If I hadn't brought up this idea, it wouldn't have become like this." Ruan Hongling widened her eyes and looked at Lin Miao. "Ah, did you come up with this bad idea?" Lin Miao's face suddenly turned red and tears were about to fall. At this time, Ziyuan raised her head and scolded in a low voice, "Hongling, don't say it if you don't understand." As she said this, her eyes narrowed and she said in a deep voice, "I thought about it carefully. In fact, Lin Miao's method should be right, but we can't figure out the key points and don't understand what happened. In my opinion, when the purple gold luo pan and the glass mirror of heaven were used together, there must have been some unexpected effect. That's why the souls of the mystical silver fox, Li Yundong, and Su Chan suddenly disappeared one after another." Zhou Qin's eyes lit up. "Yes, if we follow this clue, we will definitely be able to find out the reason." Ruan Hongling also clapped her hands and said, "Yes, yes, Shiji Ziyuan, think about it. Who is the most knowledgeable person in the cultivation world now? Who can find out the truth of this matter?" Ziyuan bit her lip hard and said softly, "Zhou Chang is dead and my master has also passed away. I think the number of famous cultivators of the older generation in the cultivation world can be counted on one hand." Zhou Qin quickly thought of something and said, "Celestial Master Zhang?" Ruan Hongling didn't go to Mount Longhu with Li Yundong and the others. She had always been upset about the Jingyi school bullying their Linggong sect again and again. At this time when she heard this she was shocked. "Ah, are we going to ask the Jingyi school for help? Will they help us?" Ziyuan pursed her lips hard, stood up and said resolutely, "If they don't help, I will kneel through Mount Longhu." However, Zhou Qin didn't have such a deep-rooted sectarian ideology as Ziyuan. She said with a murderous look, "Humph, you're so polite. If they don't help, humph, I will make a scene in Mount Longhu. If my master is gone, no one in the world will have an easy time." Chapter 898. Ziyuan and Zhou Qin had made up their minds to go to Mount Longhu. Although Ruan Hongling was a disciple of the Jingyi school, she had been bullied a little harshly in the past. Therefore, when she heard that the two of them were going to Mount Longhu, she immediately said, Okay, let's go." Lin Miao was far inferior to the three of them in terms of seniority, and cultivation. In addition, it had been her idea before, so she didn't dare to say anything to stop them. She just looked at the three of them eagerly and said, "Can you take me with you?" Ziyuan looked at Lin Miao and frowned. She thought that there might be some conflicts in this trip to the Jingyi school, and Lin Miao's cultivation was too low. If there was really a conflict, she and Zhou Qin might not be able to protect themselves, let alone take care of Lin Miao. Ziyuan was about to speak, but Zhou Qin rushed to say, "Ziyuan, let Lin Miao go. Her identity is special. Maybe it will have a miraculous effect." Ziyuan's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at the golden-haired Lin Miao and nodded slowly. "Okay, but don't talk too much when you go. Mount Longhu is not like other places. If you cause any trouble, we may not be able to protect you." Lin Miao's heart was in her throat. She finally relaxed and replied very seriously, "Well, I just want to help a little. I also want Master to come back as soon as possible." Speaking of Li Yundong, Ziyuan and Zhou Qin couldn't help but look at each other sadly. They couldn't help asking themselves countless times in their hearts, where on earth have Li Yundong and Su Chan gone? They were all cultivators, so they didn't stay for long. They rushed to Mount Longhu overnight. By the time they arrived, it was already early in the morning. Lin Miao was flying in the air with Ziyuan, looking down at the wonderful scenery of green mountains and rivers. She saw that at the foot of the mountain, there was green water flowing slowly along the mountain and around the peaks, as if resting or in love with the scenery. The beach was white and the pool was green. She was either talking softly or meditating quietly, like a beautiful and refined lady. Next to the green water were 99 peaks and 24 rocks. These peaks were filled with the softest water and the masculinity of the 99 dragons. From a distance, one could see that the ground was like holding a group of dragons and tigers. It was really majestic, like a tiger crouching and a dragon coiling. But looking closely, one could see that there was a refreshing green in the lush forest. It was full of spirituality. Even a rookie cultivator like her felt that her eyes would become much more comfortable with one more look, and her body would feel much more comfortable with one more breath of spiritual qi. This was the first time Lin Miao had come to this beautiful place. She couldn't help but be shocked by this wonderful scenery. She couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, "What a beautiful place, what a magnificent place. It's really incredible." She turned her head and said to Ziyuan, "I've been to many countries, but only China has such a magical and beautiful place. Now I finally understand why only China has Taoist cultivators like you, while other countries don't." Even though Ziyuan's heart was heavy, she couldn't help but smile slightly. She said proudly, "There are spiritual mountains and beautiful waters everywhere in China. As long as there is a green water Dan Mountain, there will be Buddhist and Taoist cultivation fields. Such a place is full of spiritual qi and collects the essence of heaven and earth. It has the characteristics of 4 distinct seasons, and there is no suffering from the 4 seasons of cold, hot, and cold. I don't think there is such a cultivation place in foreign countries." Zhou Qin was born in an official family and had gone abroad many times since she was a child. She had been to many tourist attractions all over the world. She had been to most of the natural wonders that were praised by the world. But now that she thought about Ziyuan's words, she couldn't help but nod and say, "That's right. If we're talking about a place alone, there are actually other places that can be compared to Mount Longhu. However, there are so many spiritual mountains and secluded mansions in China that are concentrated in one country. I think if our country was full of white grass or grasslands, I'm afraid there wouldn't be such a magical Taoist cultivation sect, right?" Lin Miao exclaimed in a low voice, "God loves China. I hope the cultivators of this beautiful place can help us find our master." Zhou Qin sighed. "I hope so." Ziyuan nodded and said, "Let's go down. Don't be rude and be laughed at." At this time they landed together. As soon as they arrived at the ground of Mount Longhu, they met 2 Taoist priests in Taoist robes. Both of them were holding fly whisks and seemed to be chanting scriptures along the mountain, but in fact they were patrolling. One of them was none other than the beautiful Zhang Lufang. Ziyuan stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Amateus, please wait a moment, my fellow Taoists." Zhang Lufang turned her head and saw 4 beautiful women standing behind her. Except for Lin Miao, who she was unfamiliar with, she knew the other 3. Zhang Lufang was shocked and immediately returned the greeting. She said cautiously, "It's Jinren Ziyuan. I'm so rude. I wonder why Jinren Ziyuan is here?" Zhang Lufang had unintentionally made a big mistake. As a result, Li Sen had been expelled from the sect and she had also been punished. However, her punishment was that Zhang Tianshi had ordered her to go to Zhang Kongyun's place to receive punishment. However, Zhang Kongyun was in seclusion at the moment, so she hadn't actually been punished. However, Zhang Lufang felt guilty, so she took the initiative to suggest that she follow her senior brothers and sisters to patrol the mountain. However, she hadn't expected that as soon as she patrolled the mountain, she would meet Ziyuan's group. Soon. Ziyuan knew that Zhang Lufang was from the Jingyi school and had a good impression of them. She relaxed a little and said, "We have an important matter to ask to see Jinren Zhang Tianshi." Zhang Lufang asked curiously, "You want to see the leader? He is in seclusion. I'm afraid that you will have made a wasted trip." Ziyuan said softly, "We only have a few questions to ask Jinren. We will leave after we ask. There's no need to trouble him." Zhang Lufang hesitated for a moment, then turned to the male Taoist beside her and said, "Shixiang, what should we do?" At this time, the Taoist's heart was beating violently, and his mind was almost empty. He didn't dare to raise his head and said in a panic, "Little Shimmy, you make the decision." Zhang Lufang had a strange look on her face. "It's really strange. As a Shixiang, how can you let my little Shimmy make the decision?" "No, I don't make the decision. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, I will be blamed again. It's not easy for me to have a Shixiang, but he has been kicked out of the sect. If something happens, I will also be kicked out of the sect. What should I do?" Ziyuan smiled slightly and stopped asking her. She turned to the male Taoist Shixiang and said, "Fellow Taoist, can you help me pass the message?" The power of a beautiful woman was infinite, not to mention a fairy. The male Taoist had seen Ziyuan at the inauguration ceremony of Mount Longhu before. He had fallen in love with her at first sight. At this time, when he saw her again, he was so nervous that his heart almost jumped out of his throat. In addition, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao, these three beautiful women were by his side. They were so beautiful that he didn't dare to lift his eyelids. The Shixiang hurriedly replied, "Okay, fellow Taoist Ziyuan, please come with me." As he spoke, he turned around and walked up the mountain. Zhang Lufang was a little tongue-tied as she watched from the side. She thought to herself, "Hey, are you serious? He wants you to pass a message. Why did you just take it directly? You don't have to be so lustful, do you?" According to etiquette, the Taoist should have reported first and then formally led Ziyuan and the others up the mountain to visit Celestial Master Zhang after obtaining permission. However, Ziyuan hadn't expected that the Taoist would directly lead them up. She hesitated for a moment. Zhou Qin, who was beside her, immediately urged, "What are you hesitating for? Follow him. Time waits for no one." Thinking of this, Ziyuan made up her mind and stepped forward to follow him. Although Zhang Lufang faintly felt that something was wrong, she had shirked all responsibility before. In any case, no matter how much blame was placed on her, she was happy to follow them leisurely. Zhang Lufang had seen Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and Ruan Hongling before, so after a few glances at them, she cast her eyes on Lin Miao. Because of Li Sen, she was not like many Chinese cultivators, who had great prejudice against foreign cultivators. Instead, she had a good impression of these golden-haired and blue-eyed cultivators. Zhang Lufang approached Lin Miao. She had once visited Li Yundong and seen Lin Miao standing next to him, so she said with a smile, "Hello, I seem to have seen you before. You are Li Wudi's disciple, aren't you?" Li Yundong had already become the #1 master in the world. His every word and deed had the spirit and bearing of a master of a generation. In daily life, he subtly influenced the people around him. Therefore, Lin Miao felt that she couldn't lose her master's face. In addition, she was from a big family, so her words and actions were quite like a lady from a noble family. She immediately bowed and said in a reserved manner, "My master is Li Yundong." Zhang Lufang saw that she was very fluent in Chinese, which was much better than the big-nosed Li senator. She couldn't help but sigh softly and say, "Ah, your Chinese is really good. It's much better than my silly Shurdi. It's a pity that he has been expelled from the sect. Otherwise, you would definitely have something to say when you saw him. Maybe you are from the same hometown." Lin Miao didn't know about Li Sen's experience. She smiled and said politely, "I wonder what your Shidi's name is? Where is he from? Maybe we really are from the same hometown." Zhang Lufang said faintly, His name is Li Senator. There is so much wood in his name. If it weren't for the lack of wood in the 5 elements, how could he have such a name?" Lin Miao just said it out of politeness, but she didn't expect to ask something that shocked her. Lin Miao suddenly trembled all over. She couldn't help but stretch out her hands and grab Zhang Lufang. She cried out involuntarily, "What did you say?" "Listen, John. Where is he?" Zhang Lufang looked at Lin Miao tongue-tied. She hadn't expected that this blonde, blue-eyed, and polite beauty would lose her composure like this. She cried out, "You're hurting me?" Although Lin Miao didn't have any spiritual power, she was also a reconstructed body of panacea, so she was very strong. She had lost her composure and squeezed hard, almost turning Zhang Liufang's two delicate arms purple. Lin Miao immediately let go of her hand and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I was too excited. Is your Shirdi called Li Xin? Is he tall? Has curly golden hair? Does he look like a burly man?" Lin Miao described Li Xin's appearance to Zhang Lufang in detail. Every time she said a word, Zhang Lufang nodded, and the expression of surprise on her face became more and more serious. "You know, big blockhead. Are you really from the same hometown as him?" At this time, Zhou Qin also turned around and asked curiously, "Zhenren Zhang Lufang, how do you know Zhang?" "I know Li Xin." Zhang Lufang smiled at her and said, "You can just call me Zhang Lufang. I'm not a Zhenren. I'm not good at fighting, but I'm good at causing trouble, he. As soon as she said this, Zhou Qin immediately thought of Su Chan. She smiled, and her favorable impression of Zhang Lufang suddenly doubled. At this time, Zhang Lufang told her how she had found Li Sun, how she had brought him back, and how he had become a disciple of the Jingyi school. Ziyuan listened carefully. Ziyuan had been listening carefully. At the end she understood a little. It turned out that during the inauguration ceremony, someone had faintly shouted in the crowd, as if he was speaking up for her. At that time she was in the limelight, but she didn't pay attention. She didn't expect that person to be Li Senator at this time. Ziyuan couldn't help but turn around and ask, "How is Li Xin now?" Lin Miao couldn't wait to ask, "Yes, where is he?" Zhang Lufang told her what had happened later. She sighed softly and said, "It's all my fault. If I hadn't been so nosy, how could so many things have happened?" At this time, Ziyuan and Zhou Qin looked at each other. Only then did they understand why the ninth heaven divine Night Thunder had not killed the mystical silver fox. It was because of the coincidence between Li Sen and Zhang Lufang that the mystical silver fox had escaped. Because of this, Li Sen had been expelled from the Jingyi school, and in the end he had not been able to meet Lin Miao. At this time, the two of them sighed with emotion and shook their heads secretly. Ziyuan said softly, "We meet in the mountains and rivers. We are fellow Taoists. Where can we not meet again? Lin Miao, you don't have to worry about him. I believe that Li Sun will have his own good fortune. Now that you know his whereabouts, you will definitely meet him again in the future." Lin Miao sighed softly and said, "I hope so." Ziyuan didn't expect that their group of people had originally wanted to find Li Yundong's whereabouts, but they had accidentally found out Li Sen's whereabouts. It was really unintentional. She sighed anxiously in her heart and said, "I know Li Sen's whereabouts, but where is Li Yundong? I just came back from Nanjing with my wife. My back is aching. I'll try to write another chapter later." Chapter 899. Ziyuan and the others inadvertently learned of Li Sen's whereabouts. Although Lin Miao wanted to find Li Sun and let him return to Li Yundong's side, Li Yundong's whereabouts were unknown now. As a disciple, she didn't dare to leave, so she could only suppress this idea for now. When Ziyuan followed the male Taoist to the front of the Taoist master's mansion of the Jingyi school, Zhou Ping, who was on duty outside, saw them and was shocked. Although her prejudice against Ziyuan and the others was not as deep as before, she was really shocked to see them in the heart of the Jingyi school. If Ziyuan had come to Mount Longhu in the past, there would have been nothing to be surprised about. But now Ziyuan was an inner disciple of the Jingyi school. She had started cultivating in her mother's womb. She was also a Thunder Retribution Master and the successor leader of the Linggong sect. Whether it was in terms of qualifications, seniority, or strength, she was a great master who could be on an equal footing with the leaders of all sects in China. Zhou Qin was also a Lightning Retribution Master, and she was Li Wudi's first disciple. In the future she would definitely become an earth-shattering great cultivator. The two of them had come together. One could imagine how important they were. Even the Jingyi school did not dare to underestimate them. These two great Thunder Tribulation experts appeared in front of Celestial Master Mansion without warning. If they were hostile, the consequences would be unimaginable. Zhou Ping first politely and reservedly bowed to Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and the others, then glared at Zhang Lufang and the Taoist priest who had led the way. She pulled them aside and scolded them in a low voice. "What are you doing? What kind of people were they now? How could they be casually released like this? What are they doing here?" Zhang Lufang lowered her head and did not speak, but her eyes were rolling. She tried to look at the Shirdi next to her out of the corner of her eyes. At this time the Shirdi also knew that he had done something wrong. He braced himself and said, "I brought her up here. I saw that Jinren Ziyuan was not an outsider and she wanted to see the leader, so... Zhou Ping said angrily in a low voice, you also know to call her Jinren Ziyuan? If she's not an outsider, why don't you call her senior sister Ziyuan? She could see the sect leader whenever she wanted to? Do you think this is a market? You think you can come and go as you please? Zhang Lufang whispered, eldest senior sister, you don't have to say that, do you? I heard from Jinren Ziyuan that there's a very urgent matter. Zhou Ping frowned secretly. Just as she was about to continue teaching Zhang Lufang a lesson, a voice came from the side. What's the matter? It was Zhang Ling who had heard the noise and walked over. YZ.com. When Zhang Ling saw Ziyuan, Zhou Qin and the others, she was also shocked. She stepped forward and winked at Zhou Ping, indicating that she should deal with these matters. She bowed to Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao, then said, Amateus, we meet again. Jinren Ziyuan. What about Jinren Li? He should be busy dealing with the sealed mystical silver fox now, right? Ziyuan felt a little uneasy. She returned the salute and said, to tell you the truth, we came here uninvited for this matter. Zhang Ling looked at her strangely and then said, sure enough, you don't come to the temple for nothing. What happened? Ziyuan sighed softly and told her what had happened. Then she knelt down gracefully and kowtowed to the place where Celestial Master Zhang was cultivating in seclusion. She said, after thinking about it, we think that only Celestial Master Zhang is the most admirable in the cultivation world today. He can be said to be knowledgeable from ancient to modern times. He knows Chinese and Western things. He knows 2,000 years and 800 years. He will definitely be able to answer the doubts in our hearts. I think this matter is of great importance. It's not only related to the personal safety of Li Jiandong and Su Chan, but also the whereabouts of the mystical silver fox. I hope that Celestial Master Zhang will help us for the sake of the Buddha. During the inauguration ceremony, Ziyuan had been under heavy pressure. She had never begged for mercy, let alone knelt down. But at this time she bowed gracefully and prostrated herself on the ground. The others couldn't help sighing and pointing at her. Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, saw her kowtow. Although she was a little reluctant, she still followed suit for the sake of her master. As soon as the two of them knelt down, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao had no choice but to kneel down as well. The four of them knelt on the ground in a row and begged in a low voice. Even Zhang Ling, who had a heart of stone, couldn't help but shake her head and soften her heart. She sighed in her heart, I didn't expect Ziyuan to be as affectionate as her master. She could actually do such a thing for Li Jiandong. Zhang Ling was very proud. She judged others by herself. She felt that if she were Ziyuan, she would never do such a thing. She admired her in her heart. Just as she was about to speak, she heard a gentle voice say, not for the sake of the monk, but for the sake of the Buddha? Ziyuan, when did you convert to Buddhism? There was a hint of a smile in this sentence. Not only did it not sound abrupt, but it also made people feel close to her. Ziyuan immediately raised her head and hurriedly asked, Leader Tianshi, have you agreed to help us? Ziyuan's words were so fast that Celestial Master Zhang couldn't help but laugh. Do you still recognize me as the leader of the sect? You're going to be the leader yourself. Isn't it a little inappropriate for you to talk like this? Ziyuan said softly, Ziyuan has always been a disciple of the Jingyi school, and the Linggong sect is also a branch of the Jingyi school. We are all connected. What's wrong with that? Zhou Qin was listening to the conversation between Ziyuan and Zhang Tianshi. She was thoughtful. She knew that with Zhang Tianshi's status, it was naturally impossible for him to speak carelessly. What he said was equivalent to letting Ziyuan smoothly take over the position of the leader of the Linggong sect at the next inauguration ceremony. Moreover, he did not deny what he had said before, so she immediately followed up Ziyuan's words and said, Zhang Tianshi, as the saying goes, helping others is helping yourself. The mystical silver fox is the public enemy of our cultivation world. I think Zhang Tianshi will not sit back and do nothing, will he? Zhang Tianshi smiled and said, You little girl, you don't have to use words to mock me. Do you think I can refuse such a high compliment? Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and the others were immediately overjoyed. They raised their heads one after another and looked in the direction of Zhang Tianshi's voice with joy. Zhang Tianshi said, Ziyuan, take out your two powerful magical weapons and let me have a look. Without hesitation, Ziyuan immediately took out the powerful magical weapon and placed it in front of him. She said, Please tell me. They opened their eyes wide and saw that Zhang Tianshi was nowhere to be seen. There was only a flash of cyan light, which was cast into the glass mirror of heaven. After a while, the glass mirror of heaven slowly floated above the purple gold luo pan. A beam of purple light suddenly shone from the purple gold luo pan, shining on the back of the glass mirror of heaven. In an instant, one picture after another appeared on the surface of the glass mirror of heaven. These pictures were the historical pictures recorded by the spirit mirror, from the beginning when Li Zichang created this powerful magical weapon, to the debate between Li Zichang and Ba Siba, to the cultivation of Ba Siba facing the spirit mirror and comprehending the mystery of time and space, and then to the successors of the spirit mirror. The people around the spirit mirror saw the pictures on the spirit mirror flash quickly, like a fast-paced scene in a movie. At this time the picture changed and it turned into the meeting between Ziyuan and Li Jiandong. Then, Ziyuan helped Li Jiandong resist the divine tribulation and destroyed the glass mirror of heaven. For a moment, everyone was silent, and the way they looked at Ziyuan became somewhat complicated. Zhang Ling was even more enlightened. She thought to herself, no wonder Ziyuan refused to say how this powerful magical weapon was damaged at the inauguration ceremony. It turns out that it was for Li Jiandong. It seems that the rumors about the two of them are not groundless. Even though Ziyuan was calm and composed, she couldn't help but blush a little at this time. She just forced herself not to let the blush spread to her cheeks. Fortunately, the picture soon turned to the fierce battle between Li Jiandong and the others and the mystical silver fox. Then, the mystical silver fox was thrown into the purple gold luo pan by the glass mirror of heaven. Soon, the souls of Li Jiandong and Su Chan were thrown into the purple gold luo pan in the same way. At this time, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and the others widened their eyes and saw it very clearly. Whether it was the mystical silver fox, Li Jiandong, or Su Chan, at the moment when they were about to be thrown into the purple gold luo pan, a faint blue light immediately appeared around the purple gold luo pan. As soon as this light touched the colorful light of the glass mirror of heaven, it immediately aroused a wave of ripples, shaking the surrounding air as if it was about to shatter. The figures of the mystical silver fox, Li Jiandong, and Su Chan disappeared in an instant. After reading it, Ziyuan and Zhou Qin looked at each other. They vaguely felt that they had understood something, but they couldn't tell what it was exactly. Ziyuan said helplessly, "Leader Tianshi, I finished reading it. Please tell me." Tianshi Zhang chuckled and said, "Don't you understand after reading it? Jinren Li and this little fox demon have now jumped out of the three realms and are no longer in the five elements." This sentence mostly referred to cultivators who had ascended to immortality. Ziyuan was shocked and couldn't help but say in a trembling voice, "Ah? Have they become immortals? No way." Zhou Qin's body was even colder. She said in shock, "Impossible, Master won't leave us like this. This is impossible." However, Tianshi Zhang smiled and said, "Did I say that they have become immortals? I just said that they have jumped out of the three realms and are no longer in the five elements. As for what this sentence means, you have to figure it out yourself." Zhou Qin couldn't help asking, Tianshi Zhang, explain it clearly. We don't understand." Tianshi Zhang chuckled and said, "The secret of heaven can't be revealed. If you say too much, you will be punished by heaven. Immeasurable longevity and happiness." After that, there was no more sound. Zhou Qin exclaimed in unison, Hey, what does this mean?" Zhou Ping glared at her and shouted, "Jinren Zhou, pay attention to your tone and words. Who are you talking to?" Zhou Qin was furious and subconsciously wanted to glare back, but thinking that she had just asked for help, she had no choice but to swallow her anger and think quickly with a frown. Ziyuan knelt on the ground in a daze. Zhang Ling couldn't help but sigh when she saw her helpless look. She tried to persuade her in a low voice, "Jinren Ziyuan, please get up first. The leader has already given you the answer. The rest is up to you to figure it out yourself." Only then did Ziyuan gradually come to her senses. She got up gracefully and there was a large patch of dust on her knees. She was so clean that she didn't even notice it. She just walked away in a daze with Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao. After watching them go down the mountain, Zhang Ling couldn't help but come to the immortal cloud cave and ask, "Shirdi, what do you mean? Do you know where Li Jiandong and the others have gone?" After a while, Zhang Tianshi said leisurely, "So what if I know? So what if I don't?" Zhang Ling said, "Oh, this is a big deal related to dealing with the mystical silver fox. If you know, tell them quickly. I'm worried." Zhang Tianshi chuckled and said, "Just now, Ziyuan said that I know about it for 2,000 years, but if it's something that happened after 2,000 years, I don't think I know about it. Then I can only let her find it herself." Zhang Ling was stunned and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "No way, Shirdi, how old are you? Are you still acting like a child?" Zhang Tianshi didn't comment. He smiled slightly and said, "Everything has its retribution and karma comes from the mouth. Heaven and earth can't measure themselves, and the true way can be comprehended from it. Shimi, please go back." Although Zhang Ling was also a great cultivator with a high cultivation quotient, when she heard this she felt embarrassed. She said, "Hey, what do you mean by after 2,000 years? Hey, do you know about it or not?" But no matter what she said, Zhang Tianshi didn't say another word, leaving her alone to think hard. What does this mean? Does my Shirdi know about it or not? Chapter 900. Ziyuan and the others were fooled by Zhang Tianshi and went down the mountain in a daze. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, Zhou Qin said to Ziyuan unwillingly, "Ziyuan, what should we do now? This has jumped out of the 3 realms and is not in the 5 elements. What does it mean? No matter how I hear it, it sounds like Master Hast." As she spoke, she couldn't say the rest of her words as if she was afraid that once she said it, it would become a prophecy. The reason why mortals were afraid of death was that death separated people from life and death forever. They were separated by 2 worlds and could never meet again. For cultivators, although ascension to immortality meant that a person had achieved positive results, it was not good news for those who were still cultivating hard in the mortal world, because it also meant that they and this person were separated by 2 worlds and it would be difficult for them to meet again. It was a nice way to say that a person had ascended to immortality and gone to the immortal world, but if they could never meet again, what was the difference between this person and being dead? At that time, the Jingyi school had spread the news that Wang Yuanshan had ascended to immortality. After learning this news, Ao Wushuang's temperament had changed greatly. That was why she had been able to change from an innocent girl to a cold and quiet woman. Yan Fang had even endured hardships and lurked in the Fox Zen school in an attempt to take revenge. The reason for their change was very simple. It was because they knew that ascension was a nice way to say it, but the actual answer was that Wang Yuanshan was already dead. Zhou Qin was afraid that Li Yundong would be like Wang Yuanshan, ascending to immortality on the surface, but in fact he was already dead. Ziyuan was also right about what she was most worried about. Her face turned pale and she murmured in a low voice, "No, how can there be such a way to ascend in the world? Since ancient times, whenever a cultivator ascended, there would be strange phenomena in heaven and earth. Whether it was an eminent monk passing away or a Taoist priest's corpse ascending, there would definitely be colorful clouds and rays of light. How could Li Yundong and Su Chan, who had disappeared for no reason, be ascending?" But understanding the truth and whether people could accept and convince their hearts were 2 different things. Zhou Qin and Ziyuan knew that this should not be a sign of ascension, but they always had this terrible guess hanging in their hearts, and it was difficult for them to let it go. The 2 of them were deeply in love with Li Yundong, and they had long been deeply involved in the game and could not extricate themselves from it. Usually, they were strange women whose hearts were thundering and whose faces were as calm as a lake. However, the people involved in the game could not see clearly. The 2 of them had come full of hope, but they had received a piece of news that they could not understand. This really made them confused and their usual cleverness had flown beyond the clouds. However, Ruan Hongling was still able to jump out at this time. She said tentatively, "Shiji Zhou Qin, since Celestial Master Zhang has asked us to figure out what this sentence means by ourselves, there's no need for us to hang on to the tree of the Jingyi school. Should we go to the other sects and ask?" Zhou Qin said bitterly, "Even Zhang Tianshi of the Jingyi school doesn't know. Who else in the world would know?" Although Zhou Qin was quite prejudiced against the Jingyi school, she also knew that Zhang in the south and Kong in the north. Whether she liked it or not, the Jingyi school was the largest and oldest cultivation sect in the Chinese cultivation world, and Zhang Tianshi's lineage was the cultivation family with the longest history in the Chinese cultivation world. It had a history of nearly 2,000 years. In terms of foundation and bearing, there was no one in the world who could be more profound than them. If Celestial Master Zhang didn't know, then she really couldn't think of anyone else who would know. Ruan Hongling looked at her strangely and said, "Aren't there still Buddhist cultivators? There may not be anyone more profound and knowledgeable than Zhang Tianshi in Taoism, but there must be someone in Buddhism, right? Maybe there are eminent monks in Buddhism who know what this sentence means?" This sentence suddenly woke Zhou Qin up from her dream. Zhou Qin clapped her hands and her eyes lit up. "Yes, Hongling, what you said makes sense. Let's go. If we can't get anything out of the ox nose, let's go ask the bald monk." Strictly speaking, Zhou Qin was neither a Taoist nun nor a nun. Although she was also a cultivator, she didn't cut her hair to cultivate like the Buddhists, nor did she deliberately grow her hair to cultivate like the Taoist priests. She didn't rely on either side, so she didn't have a strong awe for Taoist priests or monks like Ziyuan did. When she said this, Ziyuan's heart was heavy, and she couldn't help but feel a little amused at this time. Ziyuan glanced at Zhou Qin reproachfully and said in a low voice, "Zhou Qin, if your heart is not sincere, then you won't be able to get any results. Buddhist cultivators are very sincere." Zhou Qin's face became solemn and she said seriously, "I see. I will definitely respect all the masters very much later." After she finished speaking, she quickly frowned and said, "But, which master should we go to ask? Which master is good at Zen and dispelling mysteries?" Ruan Hongling chimed in, "Monks are all good at playing tricks, but among the 6 divine arts that monks cultivate, I think we should find someone who's proficient in the art of destiny, someone who can see through the secrets of the heavens." A simple-minded person would often look at a problem in a very simple manner. In some special situations they would be able to hit the nail on the head. On the other hand, a person with a deep and complicated mind would sometimes be overcautious and overcautious. They would think of all sorts of things and would always want to take care of everything to achieve perfection. Ziyuan had been thinking about the names of the famous eminent monks in the Buddhist cultivation world. She was going to visit them one by one. If the other party didn't help, she would beg them humbly. But she wasn't like Ruan Hongling, whose first thought was to think of a great acquaintance. Ruan Hongling said, "Look for Master Wu Hua. Didn't he predict the birth of the mystical silver fox?" Zhou Qin and Ziyuan were stunned at the same time. "Master Wu Hua?" Zhou Qin asked in surprise, "That lascivious monk?" Ziyuan also blurted out, "That flowery monk?" After the two of them finished speaking, they immediately looked at each other, their expressions indescribably strange and wonderful. Zhou Qin frowned. "Does this lascivious monk know Master's whereabouts?" Ziyuan's eyes were a little blank. She couldn't help but remember that she and Li Jiandong had gone to the red light district of Dongwu City to look for Master Wu Hua. The usually elegant fairy had a strange expression on her face. She said hesitantly, "Him? Can he really do it?" At this time Ruan Hongling was very straightforward. "Won't we know if we go and have a look? If he can't do it, we'll go to Master Purin and ask him again." Zhou Qin and Ziyuan looked at each other. After thinking for a while, they nodded in unison and said, "Okay." Lin Miao didn't know who the lascivious monk they were talking about was at all. She was extremely curious. She just blinked her big blue eyes and looked at Ziyuan and then at Zhou Qin. After they took her to Dongwu City, she asked Ziyuan in a low voice, "Ziyuan, who is this Wu Hua? Is he a lecher?" Ziyuan glanced at Lin Miao and secretly admired her for knowing to use such elegant words as lecher to describe this lascivious monk. She was a gentleman and didn't like to gossip behind people's backs. After thinking for a while, she didn't know what to say. However, Zhou Qin, who was not far away, heard her and turned her head to say, "Lecher? You're really polite." As she said this, Zhou Qin told her about Master Wu Hua's glorious deeds. When she got to the part where Master Wu Hua said, "I want Miss," Lin Miao almost laughed out loud. The blonde beauty burst into laughter in shock. She said in surprise, "Oh my God, how could there be such a lecherous monk? I heard that cultivators have a pure heart and few desires, don't they?" Zhou Qin laughed and said, "I'm just kidding. Wu Ziqian's most famous gigolo in the Tang dynasty was a handsome monk named Shui Huai. Her daughter, Princess Taiping, also had a gigolo who was also a monk." There are many Buddhist cultivators who practice Buddha of joy, and there are also many Taoists who practice yin and yang. You should know the most famous Taoist, Lu Dongbin, who is known as wine, sex, avarice and anger. This immortal Lu is a romantic and elegant man. He has had countless women in his life. I can't finish talking about his romantic life for days and nights. Lin Miao was stunned when she heard this. She saw that there were so many beautiful women around Li Yundong, and almost every one of them was as beautiful as her. She was a famous campus belle at the University of Pennsylvania and the dream lover of all the boys in the school. Every boy who saw her would come forward to please her, but Li Yundong was the only one who had been treating her like a gentleman from beginning to end. When she saw Li Yundong like this, she thought that all the cultivators in the world were like Li Yundong. They were surrounded by flowers, but they were always clean. They were simply the contemporary Luxiawi. But after hearing Zhou Qin's words, Lin Miao realized that the Chinese cultivation world was not like this at all. Ziyuan saw that Lin Miao was stunned, as if she had a new understanding of the Chinese cultivation world. She quickly said, "In fact, it's not completely like that. Strictly speaking, these cultivators can be said to be experiential, but their cultivation methods are different. There are tens of thousands of cultivation methods in the world, and this is just one of them. As the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. As long as one can cultivate to the peak in the end, any method is acceptable. Master Wuhua's words and deeds are a little strange, but there is no doubt about his cultivation quotient. Zhou Qin thought that after all she was asking for help. It seemed a little inappropriate to talk about people behind their backs. She didn't say anything more and turned her head away. Lin Miao asked curiously, so this strange monk should be very capable? Ziyuan said seriously, Master Wuhua is a genius recognized by Buddhists as a once-in-a 50-year genius. His karmic cultivation has reached the pinnacle so he can see through the secrets of heaven. I think this is why his words and deeds are a little strange. Only then did Lin Miao feel a little respect for the monk, and he became curious in his heart. When the group of people flew from Mount Longhu to Dongwu City, it was already afternoon. Ziyuan and Zhou Qin took Wan Hongling and Lin Miao. The four beautiful women went straight to Shiyuan Temple. As soon as they arrived at the door, Ziyuan saw a young novice monk who was greeting guests and quickly walked over. Because there were many tourists around at this time, the young novice monk was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out when he saw Ziyuan, a stunning beauty. When they walked in front of him, he suddenly came to his senses. He quickly put his palms together and lowered his head, not daring to look at Ziyuan. Ziyuan put her palms together and said to the young novice monk, Shixiang, is Master Wuhua here? When the young novice monk heard this, his expression became even more strange. He squinted his eyes and saw a monk passing by. He quickly shouted, Shixiang Fanning, come here quickly. This Fanning was none other than the monk who had led Li Yunyang and the others to Wuhua before. Fanning walked over with a puzzled look on his face. He greeted Ziyuan and the others and asked, Jinren, what's the matter? The young novice monk quickly said, these female benefactors are looking for Shixiang Wuhua. Shixiang Fanning, take them there. As he said this, he ran away as if he was afraid that he would be involved in this matter. Fanning was shocked. Looking at the young novice monk running away quickly, he stamped his feet and said angrily, hey, come back, come back. As he said this, he was about to chase after him, but Zhou Qin was waiting impatiently. Ignoring the tourists nearby, she grabbed his collar, raised her eyebrows, stared at him and said in a low voice, take us to Wuhua. If you refuse, I will shout that you molested her. As she said this, Zhou Qin pointed at Wan Hongling behind her. Wan Hongling was shocked. Why me? Zhou Qin turned around and glared at her. She mouthed silently, nonsense, is it me? Wan Hongling was flustered and exasperated. She was about to lose her temper and argue with Zhou Qin, but Ziyuan pulled her and motioned for her not to speak. Wan Hongling was so angry in her heart. Good Shiji, you really sold me out for your lover? What a woman. Fanning was also shocked. Jinren Zhou, calm down. If you have something to say, let's talk it out. Buddha won't believe you if you talk nonsense like this. Zhou Qin smiled maliciously and said, it doesn't matter whether Buddha believes it or not, but I know that 80% of these people who burn incense and worship Buddha will believe it. As he said this, Fanning couldn't help looking to the side. Sure enough, he saw a group of onlookers who didn't know the truth widening their eyes. Some of them even turned on the camera function of their mobile phones. Fanning complained in his heart. He knew that Zhou Qin was famous for her strong temper in the Chinese cultivation world. She would do what she said. If they made a fuss, he was afraid that the reputation of Shiyuan Temple would be implicated by him. Amit Bon. Jinren Zhou is too cruel, isn't she? Fanning's face was so bitter that he could almost squeeze out bile. He said with a sad face, don't Jinren Zhou, please be merciful. I'll take you there, okay? Chapter 901. Seeing that Fa Ning had given in, Zhou Qin snorted. She glanced around and saw that many monks in the temple were secretly looking at them, pointing at them and laughing secretly. When they saw Zhou Qin looking at them, they immediately turned their heads away. With a solemn expression on their faces, they raised one hand and went into the temple in a line. Fanning said to Zhou Qin with a tearless face, Jinren Zhou, let go of me. Buddha said that men and women should not touch each other. What are you doing? Zhou Qin let go of his collar and said unforgivingly, Bah, is this what Buddha said? When did Mencius become Buddha? I've learned a lot. Don't you read books? Fanning's face turned red, and he was so ashamed that he really wanted to dig a hole in the ground and hide in it. He put his palms together and said to Ziyuan with a twisted face, Jinren Ziyuan, come with me. I'll take you to Shixiang Wuhua. Shiyuan Temple was located on Shiyuan Road in Dongwu City, and there was a small moat next to it. Ziyuan saw that Zhou Qin was in extreme pain. If it weren't for the onlookers blocking the way at this time, Fanning would have turned around and jumped into the river. Ziyuan glared at Zhou Qin reproachfully. She said to Fanning politely, "Master Fanning, please lead the way." Fanning quickly waved his hand and said, "I don't dare to call myself master. Jinren Ziyuan, just call me Fanning." After that, he didn't dare to look at Ziyuan and Zhou Qin again, as if looking at them one more time would cause endless trouble. Fanning lowered his head all the way and walked out quickly. Ziyuan and Zhou Qin followed behind him. After they stopped a taxi, they soon arrived at Mudu Hong Kong Street, which they hadn't seen for a long time. In their group there was a monk and 4 stunning beauties. Fanning sat in the front row while Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao sat side by side in the back row because of their slim figures, so it wasn't crowded. The driver driving in front had a strange expression on his face all the way, especially when he heard that they were going to Mudu Hong Kong Street. He kept glancing at Ziyuan and the others in the rearview mirror. After they got out of the car, the driver stepped on the accelerator and muttered in Dongwu dialect, "What morning light is that? So thick, let the flowers wipe." However, he was secretly cursing. In this day and age, even monks were so flirtatious. What kind of world was this? Even the driver had such a perverted thought, let alone the guests in the red light district. Along the way, countless people looked at Ziyuan and the others with surprised and doubtful eyes. Some men were really shocked when they saw Ziyuan. They didn't dare to have any evil thoughts in their hearts, let alone go forward to ask about the price. Last time with Li Jidong they had been accompanied by him. With his appearance and his temperament, others didn't dare to look at them. But they Fanning, they Li and they and Li and Dong, in Li. But they in they Qin and... Didn't we already pass the Crystal Love International Entertainment City? Fanning put his palms together and said with a wry smile, "Jinren Zhou, my Shixiang is not here. He went to another shop to beg for alms today." "Beg for alms?" Zhou Qin laughed and sneered. "Is he begging for naughty things?" Fanning's face turned red and he braced himself to say, "Shixiang's spiritual energy is profound. We don't understand his words and deeds." Zhou Qin snorted and stopped talking to him. She just urged him to hurry up and lead the way. Before long they arrived in front of a sauna. The sauna didn't look big and there were a few pink lights at the door which really annoyed Zhou Qin. She glanced around and saw that most of the women in the shop were vulgar. They were dressed very violently, and their faces were covered with heavy makeup. If she hadn't come here twice to look for naughty things, she would never have set foot in such a place in her life. Zhou Qin thought highly of herself. Not only was she lofty but she also had a bit of moral cleanliness. She looked down on this kind of woman who did naughty things from the bottom of her heart. Seeing this place, how could she show a good face? Zhou Qin turned her head and asked Fanning, "Is your Shixiang here?" Fanning said with a wry smile, "Shixiang has recently enlightened a woman in this shop." "It should be." Zhou Qin sneered and said, "Enlightening a woman? Do you need to do it in such a place? Since you know that your Shixiang is here, it seems that you are not a good person. Humph, you are just as bad as him." Fanning really wanted to kill himself in front of the pink lights. He said tearlessly, "No, I've never been to this place." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Madame Mulberry come out and say to Fanning with a smile on her face, "Oh, Master Fanning, you're here again. Come on in and sit down." Hearing this, Ruan Hongling couldn't help but burst into laughter. Lin Miao also burst into laughter. He turned his face away and his shoulders kept shaking. Fanning's face turned purplish red like a pig's liver. He couldn't speak for a while, so he just looked at Ziyuan for help. Ziyuan said helplessly to Zhou Qin, "Zhou Qin, stop talking. Hurry up and find someone." Zhou Qin sneered and shouted at Madame Mulberry, "Hey, call Wu Hua out." Madame Mulberry put one hand on her waist and held a cigarette in the other. She said in a very coarse voice, "Oh, who are you? What's your relationship with Master Wu Hua? What's your relationship with Master Fanning?" When these beautiful women stood at the door, they naturally attracted a lot of attention. With a monk standing among them, it was even more eye-catching. Madame Mulberry had seen them for a long time. Although she was not a romantic figure like Mei Yang, she was also a person who rolled around in pleasure circles. Her eyesight was very vicious, and she could tell at a glance that Zhou Qin and the others had come with ill intentions. She had also seen Fanning and Wu Hua come to the shop together, and she had also heard Wu Hua call the monk Fanning. Therefore, she preemptively told Zhou Qin, "The person who came with you is not a gentleman. Don't try to do this. Save it." Madame Mulberry's idea was not bad. This was very useful for many women who wanted to save face, but what kind of person was Zhou Qin? She was a strong person who could fight with others head-on and break her bones as if nothing had happened. How could she give up just because of a few words? When Zhou Qin heard Madame Mulberry's words, she was so angry that she raised her eyebrows. She didn't talk nonsense with Madame Mulberry and went straight inside. She walked up to Madame Mulberry, pulled her arm and pushed her. "Get out of my way." What kind of cultivation quotient was she? Although she didn't use much strength, Madame Mulberry immediately flew out. After flying in the air for a while, she fell to the ground with a bang and screamed like a pig being slaughtered, "Come on, come on. Where are all the people? Hurry up and chase these crazy women out for this old lady." Almost every entertainment venue had its own security guards. As soon as Madame Mulberry shouted, a few strong thugs immediately ran down. When they saw Zhou Qin standing at the front, they were stunned. They had been rolling around in prostitution and had seen a lot of beautiful women, but they had never seen a woman with such temperament, outstanding figure, and stunning beauty. Especially when they looked back and saw Ziyuan again, they didn't know how to walk or speak. Each of them widened their eyes and stood motionless as if they had been immobilized. Until Madame Mulberry howled, "What are you waiting for? Why aren't you going to attack me? Who usually takes care of you?" Only then did these thugs wake up as if they had just woken up from a dream. One by one they rushed forward. However, being beautiful was indeed an advantage. Although these thugs looked fierce with bulging eyes, they had made up their minds not to hurt such a beautiful woman. However, they had pity for her, but Zhou Qin had no intention of being soft-hearted. She snorted coldly, and the others saw her waving her slender hand. Suddenly, these burly men flew out of the door like little children and fell heavily on the road. They were confused and cried out. The eyes of the bystanders bulged out and they were shocked. "Damn, is this a beautiful girl? This woman is too powerful, isn't she?" Seeing that the situation had developed so much, Ziyuan complained in her heart, but she couldn't say anything. She just whispered to Zhou Qin, "Hurry up and go in. I've already locked on to Master Wu Hua's location." After hearing this, Zhou Qin didn't even look at them and rushed straight in. The people in the sauna saw that she was so domineering and fierce, so no one dared to stop her. When a technician and a young lady saw her coming over, they immediately screamed and dodged as if they had seen a ghost. Then they watched her walk inside. There were many rooms in the sauna room and there was a door separating them. Along the way the lights were dim and ambiguous, and the soundproofing effect was excellent. Even if there was a huge commotion outside, no sound could be heard from inside. Of course, by the same logic, even if there was a huge commotion inside, no sound could be heard from outside. After entering the door, they could hear a burst of low and obscene sounds. The four great beauties, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao, all blushed when they heard this sound. Zhou Qin gritted her teeth and thought to herself, "Wu Hua, if you don't know where Master is, I'll teach you a lesson." Under Ziyuan's guidance, she walked straight to a dark room. As soon as she reached the door, she heard a clear voice coming from inside. It would have been better if she hadn't heard it, but as soon as she did, anger rose in her heart, and she became even more daring. It was a man in the room who said slowly, "Amitba, benefactress, please forgive me for not being able to consecrate the light through your clothes. Please take off your clothes." Zhou Qin was furious. Without saying a word, she raised her leg and kicked the door open. She rushed in angrily. Uploaded by bookfriend /. Chapter 902. Zhou Qin kicked the door open and a scream came from inside. She took a closer look and saw an enchanting woman in the room looking at the door in panic. She was wearing a cheongsam and her clothes had been pulled down to her chest, revealing a snow-white chest and a deep ravine. She was almost there. At this time the light in the room was dim and ambiguous. This woman had amazing curves and was indescribably seductive. What a stunner. Zhou Qin rushed into the room angrily and Ziyuan, who was beside her, couldn't stop her. She felt a headache coming on. Inside the room, Wu Hua was looking at the door. When he saw Zhou Qin, he was stunned for a moment. Just as he was about to speak, he saw that Zhou Qin had already rushed up to him angrily. Zhou Qin resisted the urge to pick up Wu Hua. She gritted her teeth and sneered, "Master Wu Hua, may I ask what you are doing here?" Wu Hua seemed to have expected such a thing. He stood up calmly, bowed solemnly and said, it turns out to be benefactor Zhou Qin. I haven't seen you for a long time. Please forgive me for my rudeness. I'm doing this for this benefactor. Zhou Qin said angrily, if you dare say that you are blessing her, I will slap you to death. Wu Hua paused for a moment and then said, I'm doing this for this benefactor. Zhou Qin rushed to say, if you dare say that you are healing her through her clothes, I will slap you to death. Wu Hua's expression was strange. He glanced at the woman next to him and then at Zhou Qin. He put his palms together, chanted the name of Buddha and said, Amit Ba lust. Zhou Qin rushed to say, Amit Ba my ass. If you dare say that lust is emptiness and emptiness is lust, I will slap you to death. The corner of Wu Hua's eyes twitched. He looked at Zhou Qin helplessly and said, benefactor you haven't heard of. Unexpectedly at this time, Zhou Qin rushed to say again, nonsense, if you dare say that wine and lust pass through your intestines and Buddha sits in your heart, I will. Before she could finish her words, Ruan Hongling next to her said in unison, I will slap you to death. After that, she burst into laughter with Lin Miao beside her. Wu Hua looked up to the sky and sighed. Benefactor Zhou, you can slap me to death. Although Ziyuan felt that it was a little inappropriate, she couldn't help laughing when she saw Wu Hua, who was eloquent and had a painful expression on his face. However, she was calm after all. She pulled Zhou Qin's arm and motioned for her not to go too far. Then she said to Wu Hua, Master Wu Hua, it's really rude of us to come here. Why don't we go out and wait for you for a few minutes? Wu Hua waved his hand and said with a solemn expression, I'm purifying the secular world. What's there to be ashamed about? Zhou Qin was so angry that she laughed. She pointed to the side and said, Master Wu Hua, can you please put on your pants first when you talk seriously in the future? Wu Hua's expression froze for a moment, before returning to normal. He calmly put on his long pants and tidied up his clothes. Then he asked sternly, what business do you have with me? Zhou Qin snorted. Even if she wanted to ask for help, she didn't know what to say at this time. She really didn't believe that this monk could find Li Yundong. Ziyuan no longer had any hope, but since she was already here, she had to take things as they were. She said softly, Master Wu Hua, aren't you proficient in karmic divination? You must be able to guess why we're here, right? Wu Hua glanced at them, then smiled slightly and said, you guys are inseparable from Jinren Li. This time you came here so abruptly and benefactor Zhou ruined my plan. There must be something urgent. If I'm not wrong, something must have happened to Jinren Li. You want to ask me, right? Ziyuan was stunned for a moment, then she smiled appreciatively and said, Master Wu Hua is really smart. Yes, that's why we're here. As she spoke, she briefly told him what had happened. Then she asked anxiously and worriedly, Master Wu Hua, we have no idea what to do now. Please help us. Wu Hua smiled, put his palms together and said, Amit Ba, Jinren Li is the reincarnation of Wisdom King. He won't die so easily. If he becomes a Buddha, it's impossible for us not to know. Zhou Qin said, don't you think we know that? We just want to know where my master has gone. Aren't you proficient in karmic divination? I think you should know where my master has gone. If you can help us find him, I will definitely treat you well. Wu Hua smiled and said, if you don't slap me to death, this poor monk will be very satisfied. Zhou Qin snorted. Just as she was about to retort, she suddenly saw that the enchanting woman had already taken off her clothes. There seemed to be a tail flashing quickly under the hem of her dress. It was so fast that it looked like an illusion. If it weren't for the fact that Zhou Qin had cultivated to the Thunder Retribution realm and had a pair of fiery eyes, she would have thought that she was hallucinating. Zhou Qin was stunned for a moment. When she raised her head to look at the woman, she saw that she had already hidden behind Wu Hua in panic. She wanted to see what was going on, but it was already too late. Zhou Qin was shocked and doubtful. What the hell is this monk doing? Is this woman a demon? Is she really avoiding evil and purifying? Even if she wants to purify, she doesn't need to be enlightened. Do you think you're the abbot of Shaolin Temple? However, at this time, Zhou Qin couldn't care less about this. She asked, do you have a way? If you have a way, tell me quickly. I will definitely thank you later. Wu Hua smiled and said, it's the duty of us cultivators to help the righteous way. What's more, Jinren Li has a deep relationship with our Buddhist sect. In addition, the calamity of the world has not been resolved, so I should help you. As he spoke, he turned back and whispered a few words to the woman behind him. Then he turned to Zhou Qin, Ziyuan, and the others and said, benefactors, please come with me. It's a little inconvenient for us to talk outside. The woman looked at Wu Hua reluctantly and said softly, "Master, please come again next time." Wu Hua said with a serious face, "Please rest assured, benefactor. I will definitely come again." Zhou Qin and Zi Yuan looked at each other awkwardly. No matter how they listened, it felt awkward. Zhou Qin coughed dryly, while Zi Yuan pretended not to hear it with a straight face. Just as they were about to go out, they saw a group of people rushing in from outside. It was the thugs from the sauna room. With the encouragement of Madame Sang, they had regrouped and were ready to come in and arrest the people. Zhou Qin frowned, sneered, and said in a low voice, "They won't cry until they see the coffin." Then she prepared to go up again. But at this time Wu Hua smiled and said, "Benefactor Zhou, everything in the world is a trick. Why do you care about them?" As he spoke, he pinched his fingers together. After the thugs who had rushed and looked around for a while, they actually passed by them as if they hadn't seen them at all. Zhou Qin was a little impressed by Wu Hua. She looked him up and down seriously, and the hope in her heart suddenly increased a little. After they left the fragrant red light district, Zi Yuan, Zhou Qin, and the others immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Wu Hua put his palms together and said, "Benefactors, we are out now. Is there a quiet place for me to practice?" Zi Yuan said, "Master Wu Hua, why don't we go to the Taoist field on Mount Tianlong? It's quiet and remote there." Wu Hua smiled and said, "It turns out to be the old place of the Fox Zen school. Well, where does the cause and effect begin? Naturally it should be here." Zhou Qin saw that his words were full of deep meaning, and her heart moved slightly. She seemed to have thought of something, but it was vague and she couldn't figure it out clearly. Seeing that she couldn't figure it out, Zhou Qin stopped thinking about it. They soon arrived at the stone cave of the secret chamber of the Fox Zen school. Wu Hua looked around and nodded frequently. Especially when he saw the big words written by the mystical silver fox on the stone wall, he couldn't help putting his palms together and saying, "Amit Ba, the cause of all things is this." Good. Zi Yuan was not in the mood to think about the meaning of her words. After she took out the purple gold luo pan and the sky-reaching glass mirror, she said to Wu Hua, "Master Wu Hua, come and take a look. What's wrong with these two powerful magical weapons?" After we asked Celestial Master Zhang, he said that Li Yundong had jumped out of the 3 realms and was no longer in the 5 elements. What does this mean? Master, please help us solve this problem. Wu Hua chuckled and walked to the side of the 2 powerful magical weapons. He rolled up the sleeve of the other hand with one hand, and gently pinched his fingers with the other, like Buddha holding a flower and smiling. He gently pointed to the sky-reaching glass mirror and said, "Zhenren Zi Yuan, can you let me have a look?" Zi Yuan quickly stepped aside and said, "Master, please have a look." Wu Hua stretched out his hand and gently touched the surface of the sky-reaching glass mirror with his finger. Suddenly the mirror began to surge and soon, one picture after another appeared on the mirror, which was the same as when Celestial Master Zhang had done it. Wu Hua looked at the mirror seriously. After all the pictures had passed, he reached out to the purple gold luo pan again. As soon as his finger touched the luo pan, a purple halo appeared on it. The halos were like ripples, one layer after another. Wu Hua looked at the waves that were constantly spreading around and sighed softly, "This magical item is really amazing. Look, between each wave there is a small kiliacosms." As he spoke, he looked up at Zi Yuan and smiled. "I think I already know where Zhenren Li is." Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin immediately asked nervously in unison, "Where is he?" Lin Miao and Ruan Hongling also clenched their fists and looked at Wu Hua with their eyes wide open. Wu Hua smiled and said, "He is no longer in this world." Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin suddenly trembled, as if they had been struck by lightning. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. Zi Yuan's face was as white as paper, and she said in a trembling voice, "Could it be that he has really?" Zhou Qin's body also swayed as if she was about to fall at any time. "That's impossible. Master can't just leave us like this." Wu Hua looked at them strangely and said, "I didn't say that he was dead. I just said that he went to another kiliacosm." Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin were stunned for a moment. Only then did they come to their senses. Zhou Qin was angry and annoyed. "Why are you panting while talking?" Zi Yuan didn't care about him. She quickly asked anxiously, "Then where is he?" Wu Hua chuckled and pointed his finger forward. "Right here." Chapter 903. Wu Hua pointed forward, but Zi Yuan and Zhou Qin saw that he was pointing at the sky-reaching glazed mirror. The two of them looked at each other, and Zi Yuan asked in confusion, "Here?" Wu Hua smiled and said, that's right. Jinren has already jumped out of the 3 realms and is no longer in the 5 elements. Naturally he has gone to other small worlds. Buddha says that karma should end where it starts. Jinren and the mystical silver fox disappeared because of this powerful magical weapon, so we should naturally start from this powerful magical weapon. Ziyuan hesitated and said, Master Wuhua, I understand what you said, but there are 36,000 methods in Buddhism, and there are hundreds of millions of small worlds in Taoism. There are so many small worlds. Where can we find Li Yundong? Wuhua smiled, put his palms together and said, Amitba, I need Jinren Ziyuan's help. He pointed to the sky-reaching glazed mirror and said, Jinren Ziyuan, please help me later. Mobilize your spiritual power and Jinshi to drive this powerful magical weapon. I will find a way to find where Jinren is, but I can't guarantee that it will be accurate. Ziyuan was skeptical, but there was no better way at the moment. She hesitated for a moment and said, Well, thank you, Master Wuhua. As she said this, she activated her Jinshi and flew into the air with the powerful magical weapon. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao, who were next to her, saw that the mirror quickly cast a colorful divine light, shining straight on the ground. Wuhua nodded and said, Jinren Ziyuan, please shine this divine light here. As he said this, he pointed to the purple gold luo pan next to him. Ziyuan controlled the powerful magical weapon and shone the beam of light toward the purple gold luo pan. She saw that the beam of light was no different from before, but at this time, Wuhua stretched out his hand and pointed at the back of the purple gold luo pan. In an instant, the purple gold luo pan buzzed and countless purple light waves suddenly rippled out, merging with the colorful divine light. Suddenly the room was filled with brilliance, dazzling people. Wu Hua's fingers fluttered like a blooming lotus, while his other hand formed a palm. He said in an evil tone, My heart contains the 10 Dharma realms, 1 Dharma realm contains the 10 Dharma realms and the 100 Dharma realms. 1 world has 30 worlds, the 100 Dharma realm has 3,000 worlds. However, the mind is all Dharma and all Dharma is the mind. It is neither vertical nor horizontal, neither one nor different, it is profound and solitary, it is not known by knowledge, it is not spoken by words. As he spoke, his eyes shone with a profound brilliance. His gaze was like a torch as he pointed towards the ever-changing image of the sky-piercing glass mirror. Instantly, the stone chamber buzzed as though a bomb had exploded. The sound was oppressive, and the air trembled violently. Then a rainbow halo appeared behind the amethyst gold luo pan with a hissing sound. The halo was so dense that it looked like spilled paint and couldn't be dissolved. At this time Wu Hua shouted, 3,000 worlds, 1 billion mortal worlds, open. Suddenly the colorful halo was pulled apart, and a huge black hole appeared in the middle. Black mist could be faintly seen spinning and twisting in the black hole. It was so deep that it was bottomless. Ziyuan and Zhou Qi knew that Wu Hua was proficient in the predestination art, but they didn't know that he was more proficient in the heavenly eye art, one of the 6 great magical powers of Buddhism. The so-called heavenly eye art meant that one could see the cause and effect of the 3 lives of all living beings, as well as the place of reincarnation in the cycle of life and death. The predestination art allowed one to know what had happened to oneself and others in the past. Knowing the future was the function of the heavenly eye art, but the future was uncertain, so it was generally not absolutely correct. However, the method of the past was extremely accurate and could be found by human beings. After the eminent monks of Tibetan Buddhism passed away, their disciples or other monks would look for their reincarnation everywhere. At this time they needed a monk with profound spiritual power, the heavenly eye art and the predestination art to take the lead. Otherwise, in the vast sea of people, they might not be able to find the reincarnated spirit boy even if they searched for a lifetime. Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao were all stunned. At this time Wu Hua turned his head and shouted at them, Why aren't you going in to look for him? Zhou Qin seemed to have just woken up from a dream. Without thinking about it, she gritted her teeth and rushed in a flash. Ruan Hongling, who was beside her, let out a sigh. Just as she was about to reach out to stop her, she saw her figure move and disappear into the dark cave in the blink of an eye. She was stunned for a moment and stared straight at the dark cave. She gritted her teeth, stamped her feet and rushed in as well. Her figure disappeared in an instant. The 2 of them disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving only Lin Miao standing there alone. Although she also wanted to go, she saw that the divine light was colorful and unusually bright. It didn't seem like a color that could exist in the mortal world. Her eyes widened, and seeing that the pillar of light was very close to her, she curiously wanted to touch it with her hand. Just as she reached out her hand and touched the colorful light, she immediately felt a strong suction force coming from it. Her vision went black and she was instantly sucked in. She was a little bit surprised. She didn't know what to do. Ziyuan, who was watching from a high place, was very anxious. Just as she was about to scream, she heard Wu Hua say loudly, "Ziyuan, you can't be distracted. You have to keep this powerful magical weapon. Otherwise, when the door closes, they won't be able to come back." Ziyuan's heart sank, and she didn't dare to be distracted anymore. However, she was secretly anxious. She didn't know where Zhou Qin and the others had gone, whether they would meet Li Yunyang and whether they could come back together. At this time, the cultivators of various sects in Japan were rushing to Tianan City in great numbers for the sake of Ise Xinguang and Ise Chuyun of the Ise Shinto. Unlike the last time, this time, only 1 or 2 people from each sect in the Japanese cultivation world had come. Basically, all of them were people who were good at politics and had a good relationship with both sides. Last time they had come to China to fight Peking. Naturally, they had sent out all their elites. It was fine as long as they could fight. The more trash like Takahashi Masashi, the better. But this time things were different. This time they were not here to fight. They were here to see the reincarnated Wisdom King. If a few more trash like Takahashi Masashi came, they would anger Wisdom King. That would not be good. Se Xinguang was quite eloquent, and he was quite popular in the Japanese cultivation world. Kaisai Hikaryuni of Shingen Tantrism was not coming this time, and Imagawa Kagumo had already passed away. The great monks of Pure Land True Sect were busy holding a funeral at the Wish Temple. The patriarch of the Abe family had just died, and the 3 great priests of Yoshikawa Shinto, Yoshida Shinto, and Chuka Shinto had all died. It could be said that the elites of the top generation in the Japanese cultivation world had almost been wiped out in these consecutive battles, so the responsibility of leading the team naturally fell on Ise Xinguang. If it had been in normal times, these Japanese people might have argued. Where there were people, there would be jianghu. Where there were jianghu, there would be fights. Since they were going out in a group, there would naturally be a leader. No matter how small the leader was, they would still have to fight for it. However, this battle not only greatly damaged the vitality of the Japanese cultivation world, but also destroyed the arrogance and conceit of the Japanese cultivation world. Compared with other sects, the Ise Shinto had lost the least. None of the great priests and goddesses had died. Although Ise Chumo was seriously injured, the situation was relatively calm at this time. There would be no more battles in a short time, so Ise Chumo's injury could be ignored. A top expert had an extremely great influence on the power of a sect. Because the Tachibana family had merged with the Jinyin Tantrism, Masako Tachibana had obtained the power of Wisdom King. As a result, the Tachibana family had once ruled the Japanese cultivation world for 10 years. The Jinyin Tantrism had also risen along with it, surpassing the Tiantai sect and becoming the second largest cultivation sect in Japanese Buddhism. Therefore, it could be said that Ise Xinguang led the team out this time. The Japanese people were utilitarian and practical. If the other party was stronger than them, they would shrink into a ball and endure humiliation. If they were stronger than the other party, they would ride on the other party's neck and defecate. The Ise Shinto was originally one of the top sects in the Japanese cultivation world. After this battle, it was even more outstanding. The 2 top masters were well preserved. Se Xinguang and Ise Chumo, both of whom respected Li Yunyang very much in their daily words and deeds, could be regarded as pro-China. Therefore, on this trip, the Japanese people were extremely polite, and there were also some Japanese consortiums that had close ties with the religious world. There were 10 consortiums in the United States, namely Rockefeller, Morgan, First Citibank, DuPont, Boston, Mellon, Cleveland, Chicago, California, and Texas. There were also 6 consortiums in Japan, namely Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo, Fuji, Daiichi, and Sanwa. In fact, these consortiums controlled the economic and political lifelines of their respective countries, and even the economic lifelines of the world. They were very powerful. On the surface, these 6 consortiums did not have much contact with the various cultivation sects in Japan, but in fact, these large consortiums had branches of medium-sized consortiums. These medium-sized consortiums had a very close relationship with the various cultivation sects in Japan. It could even be said that many people in these cultivation sects were their worshippers. If there was anything wrong with them, they would go to treat them or become mages. If there was anything unfair, they would even directly act as thugs. The 2 consecutive defeats of the Japanese cultivation world not only shocked the cultivation world, but also affected the forces of these consortiums, which made the big shots of these consortiums extremely shocked. The cultivators went to China to worship the Akalanatha. They were unwilling to be left out, so they followed the cultivators of various sects to China. They wanted to see what the reincarnated Wisdom King who was famous in Japan looked like. Did he have 3 heads and 6 arms as the rumors said? But when they ran to Tianan City in China, they found that the Akalanatha had already left. But when Ise Xinguang and the others asked where Li Yunyang had gone, how could the little foxes who stayed at home tell them? This time the Japanese came excitedly and everyone was disappointed. But they reacted quickly, and soon remembered that the reincarnated Wisdom King had opened a tea house with Desangxian in the downtown of Tianan City. If they went there, they might be able to find him in person. As a result, these Japanese people headed toward the Desangxian in a large group. Yesterday there was a sudden power outage. After waiting for a while, there was no electricity, so he went straight to bed. When he got up in the morning, he hurriedly finished this chapter. Chapter 904. Feng Na had been very unhappy these past few days. Although she had received a big red envelope during the new year, as the saying goes, the more you get, the more you have to pay. After all, there was no free lunch in the world. After Li Yundong's Desangxian opened a branch in Tianan City, its business became increasingly prosperous. With its unique business methods and genuine immortal tea skills, coupled with Chen Wankai and the others sparing no effort in pursuing it, Desangxian maintained a unique leading position in the tea business in Tianan City, which was like a swarm of bees. However, in any industry, if one party was too outstanding, it would be easy to be envied, excluded, or even suppressed. Especially when a business could generate high profits, all kinds of conspiracies and sinister methods would be derived from it. Although Li Yundong had a deep background in Tianan City, Zhou Qin was by his side to protect him, and Chen Wankai had just become a disciple. This could not stop Li Yundong from not showing up all day long, and he could not stop people with poor eyesight from having some crooked ideas all day long. The business of Desangxian was booming, and its daily performance was unbelievable, but this was not enough to drive many people crazy with jealousy. What really made them jealous was that under Chen Wansai's advice, Feng Na had adopted the V-level system in Desangxian. Especially after the opening of the high-level tea room, some high-ranking officials and dignitaries felt honored to be able to go into the room and drink a cup of tea. It seemed that from then on they had a little bit of elegance. In this way, the people who went in and out of these high-level tea rooms formed a special group, and because of the existence of Desangxian, there was a lot of communication between this special group. It was just like how a lot of people sharpen their brains to get into Class A. They were not really there to learn about Class A, but to get to know the other elites in the circle. In their eyes, sometimes networking was more important than knowledge. In the same way, after Desangxian brought up the atmosphere of tea culture in Tianan City, a large number of high-ranking officials and nobles in Tianan City went to drink tea almost every day. How much money they drank every day was secondary, but the energy generated by such a group of people together made others extremely jealous. However, these people were jealous, but they could still control themselves. They would not be stupid enough to provoke the owner of this shop, but there were always 1 or 2 people who were stupid, especially those who had been in the officialdom since childhood and were deeply influenced by the official culture. Lu Wenle, who had followed his father to Tianan City, was one of them. Although his father had repeatedly told him to keep a low profile and not cause trouble for his father when he came to Tianan City to take over as the secretary of the political and legal committee, Lu Wenle had been a devil since he was a child. He was used to being arrogant. He could not bear it anymore after a few days. He followed the trend of Tianan City's officialdom and came to Desangxian. When he saw the smart, capable, beautiful and generous Feng Na, he was immediately shocked and swore to get her. The eldest young master Lu naively thought that this tea house was Feng Na's own property. The next day he came to her casually, pointed at the Desangxian tea house, and said that he wanted to buy it. He asked Feng Na to make a bid. When Feng Na was an intern at the TV station, she had also seen such a face, but she had never seen such a brazen one. She was polite, but she said that this tea house was not her property and she could not make the decision. When young Master Lu heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. "This tea house is not yours? Are you working here? Well, when I buy this tea house, I will give her part of the shares. Won't such a beauty come to me obediently?" Young Master Lu's plan was very clever. He did not want to buy this tea house on a whim. He had carefully observed the business of this tea house. Not to mention that it was popular, the key was that high-ranking officials and nobles often came and went. His father had just been parachuted into the officialdom of Tianan City and was unfamiliar with the place. If he could buy this place, it would be a convenient place for his father to interact with other high-ranking officials and nobles in the future. Most of the interpersonal relationships of China were at the wine table, and it was also feasible at the tea table. Therefore, buying the Desanxian tea house could not only allow his father to quickly integrate into the officialdom of Tianan City, but also bring a beauty home. This was really a good idea to kill two birds with one stone. However, after young Master Lu expressed his desire to see the owner of the tea house, Feng Na refused without saying a word. She knew very well that how could Li Yundong sell his painstaking efforts? Even if he had this idea, she had to persuade him. Young Master Lu had hit a wall, but he was not discouraged. He carefully checked Feng Na's information and details, only to find that Feng Na was only from an ordinary middle-class family. Her family was not bad, but it was not surprising. This tea house was also opened by a young man named Li Yundong. After young Master Lu found out that Li Yundong was the behind-the-scenes boss, he subconsciously wanted to go to Li Yundong to discuss the purchase of the tea house. However, these days, Li Yundong was either busy saving the world or saving mankind all day long. He had no time or mind to pay attention to these things. Because he often had to meditate or fight with others, he usually did not take his mobile phone with him. Otherwise, when he was deep in meditation or in the fierce and anxious period of fighting with others, he would be distracted by a phone call at this time. Young Master Lu had been looking for Li Yundong's whereabouts for a few days, but he had not found any trace of him. He thought that Li Yundong was hiding from him. He sneered at the courage of this behind-the-scenes boss and subconsciously wanted to find some people to mess with him. However, a crown prince like eldest young Master Lu might be arrogant and supercilious in daily life, but his starting point was much higher than that of ordinary people. Therefore, even when he was muddle-headed, sometimes his way of doing things and his vision were much higher than that of ordinary people. Although the eldest young Master Lu was arrogant, he still had to find out his opponent's background. But it would be better if he didn't find out. Once he did, he was shocked. Oh my God, it turns out that he also has a strong background. Young Master Lu suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He had just patted his chest and boasted to the beauty. If he stopped at this time and the news spread, how could he stay in Tianan City? Young Master Lu's father was the secretary of the Political and Legal Committee, which was a key position in the government department. He was a leader with real power and had a very high status. Although he was sent here by air, there would always be some people who wanted to curry favor with him. Therefore, young Master Lu was naturally the target of the people below him. Young Master Lu usually went out with a lot of people around him. With a casual word, someone would be willing to help him. It was too easy to get a person, especially a person with property. Young Master Lu had been in the officialdom since he was a child. He knew that the best way to deal with the Desanxian was to start from the aspect of health, and it was naturally the sanitary bureau that was in charge of health. In order to cover up, young Master Lu could not rush into the sanitary bureau and say that he wanted to deal with the Desanxian. He quickly found the Health and Epidemic Prevention Station, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and other units under the Sanitary Bureau. The leaders of the departments above might not necessarily give him face. After all, they were all famous people, but when the people below him saw him, as long as they recognized him, how could they not be polite? What? Young Master Lu is in trouble? Leave it to me. I promise to do it properly for you. Therefore, after a meal, a few glasses of wine, and with the instigation of young Master Lu, a few hotheads swaggered to the door drunk. After all, Feng Na had just graduated from college. How could she know the complexity of society and the sinister nature of people's hearts? In the land of the Celestial Empire, there were 10,000 reasons for officials to punish the people. If they wanted to punish a business, there were 1,000,000 reasons. Especially in the health industry. Although there was an operating standard for whether the industry was clean or not, no matter how standard it was empty talk when it was carried out by King people. These people from the Epidemic Prevention Station swaggered to the Desanxian Station and walked around the store. When they came out, they said that the health and safety of the store were not up to standard and needed to be closed for 3 months. This time, Feng Na was dumbfounded. When she took over the Desanxian, it was when the business of the Desanxian began to improve. At this time, many officials in Tianan City had attended the opening ceremony of the Desanxian, so they all bought the store. She had never been involved in these things. Even if she had a supply of goods or was forced to contact these people because of other disputes, she had been given the green light all the way, and no one had made things difficult for her. But at this time, when she suddenly encountered someone who wanted to clean up the Desanxian, Feng Na was suddenly at a loss. As the saying goes, the king of hell is easy to see, but the little ghosts are difficult to deal with. The ones who were really working were these ordinary law enforcement officers, who usually looked inconspicuous. These people usually had unfathomable connections. If they didn't want the hygiene of a store to pass the standard, they could even find problems in a 9-star restaurant, let alone the Desanxian. Feng Na had never encountered these things before, and she didn't know what to do. She could only watch these law enforcement officers drag their tea and tea sets away. This really made the round-faced beauty so angry that she gritted her teeth behind her back. The female shop assistants in the store were also panicking. They said at the same time, "What should we do? Feng Na, what should we do?" Feng Na didn't know what to do, but Ching Ching reacted quickly. She blurted out, "Nana, what are you waiting for? Hurry up!" And finally Jiandong. Feng Na felt as if she had just woken up from a dream. She immediately grabbed her cell phone and dialed the number. However, no one answered the phone. Ching Ching saw that no one was answering the phone, so she said, "Call Zhou Qin." Feng Na immediately called Zhou Qin again, but no one answered. She didn't know that Zhou Qin had been cultivating for a long time and had gradually developed many habits of cultivators. If she felt that it would be dangerous to go out, she would never bring her cell phone with her. Feng Na couldn't get through to Zhou Qin's number, so she dialed Ziyuan's number. However, no one picked up after this round of dialing. Even when she finally dialed Shin Wansai's number, he happened to be on a plane to Thailand to discuss business, and his phone was turned off on the plane. Feng Na had no choice but to call Lin Miao. But what made her crazy was that the phone was quickly hung up. This time, Feng Na was really anxious like an ant on a hot pot. She naturally couldn't figure out where Li Jiandong was now, and Li Jiandong had never expected that when he turned his head to deal with the mystical silver fox, there would be a fire in his backyard and big trouble. Chapter 905. As the saying goes, a cat has its own way and a mouse has its own way. The tricks in China's officialdom could not be finished in a few days and nights. If eldest young Master Lu wanted to mess with a person, he would probably start from several aspects at the same time, trying to beat the other party so hard that he couldn't fight back, couldn't breathe, and finally begged for mercy. But now he just sent a few minions of the Health and Epidemic Prevention Station to check the health and safety, which was just a small test. Although eldest young Master Lu did not know Li Yundong's name in the cultivation world, he knew that his background in the secular world was not small. If the other party reacted strongly and had amazing energy, he could push the blame to his subordinates, then set up a table of wine, apologize, and admit that he was a coward. Then it would be fine. Eldest young Master Lu had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. When I was drinking and eating, I talked nonsense with a few friends. As a result, they took a chicken feather as a token of authority and did something stupid. Eldest young Master Lu, this is actually a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. Eldest young Master Lu, please forgive me this time. Eldest young Master Lu had always been flexible. When he sent people out, he even prepared to set up a banquet. He even chose the hotel, which was the Xingyuan Hotel in Tianan City. However, when eldest young Master Lu paced back and forth at home, waiting for the other party's thunderous counterattack, there was no movement at all. Logically speaking, in this information age, if one's shop was messed with, one should immediately call the boss, and then the boss would fly into a rage and start to mobilize his own energy. After a while, the sky was full of dark clouds and thunder. If one reacted quickly, there would be movement in at most half an hour, and if one reacted slowly, it would not take more than an hour. However, eldest young Master Lu waited at home for nearly 2 hours, but there was no movement at all. It was so quiet that it was unreasonable. Even if a common person was messed with, the other party would still make a scene. There was no reason for the other party to be so quiet after messing with such a tough guy, right? Could it be that I misjudged him? Is he a weakling? Eldest young Master Lu naturally did not expect that the other party was a person who did not carry a mobile phone with him all day long, let alone that the other party could not find anyone who could help him at this time. Under this strange combination of factors, he could not help but come to a conclusion. The other party seemed to be scared. Alright, I'll continue messing with him until he makes some noise. After the people from the Health and Epidemic Prevention Station came, the people from the CDC came again. This time the people who came were wearing white coats and masks. It was as if they were the biological and chemical troops who came to check for virus weapons. It scared the little girls and waiters in the tea house so much that their faces turned green. Feng Na was so angry that her eyes turned black and she almost fainted. She went up to reason with them, but they beat around the bush and played rogue with her. When Cheng Cheng threw caution to the wind and went forward to act wildly, the other side went back to reason with them with a straight face. They were really officials with two mouths but not ordinary people at all. After the group of people left for a while, the people in the nearby shops and onlookers looked at the Desanxian in a different way. They all pointed at the Desanxian. Feng Na's heart was bleeding with hatred. At this time she really had a feeling that she couldn't call out to anyone. Where on earth had Li Yundong gone? She was really anxious. Li Yundong is a mysterious guy. Where on earth did he go? Feng Na's mobile phone was almost broken. In the end she wanted to smash it. Seeing that it was not a good thing, she gritted her teeth and said, "No, I'll go to the sanitary bureau by myself. I don't believe that there is no reason in this world." Cheng Cheng quickly grabbed her and said, "Nana, don't go. It's obvious that someone is messing with us. Think about it. Did we offend someone?" Feng Na was stunned. After all, she came from a good family and could not understand so many sinister people. She did not immediately think of the darkest side of things. Now that Cheng Cheng reminded her, she suddenly came to her senses. She turned her head and looked at Cheng Cheng, blurting out, "It can't be Lu Wenla, can it?" Cheng Cheng clapped her hands and immediately said, "It must be him." It would have been better if she hadn't said this. As soon as she said this, the two women felt that it must be Lu Wenla's doing. At the beginning this guy had been so fierce, and now it seemed that he had fulfilled his promise. If Li Yundong was still there, they naturally wouldn't have to worry about such a thing. But the problem was that Li Yundong was not there now, so the two of them who had no background really had a big headache and were in a mess. Feng Na thought for a moment, picked up her small bag, stood up and was ready to go outside. She said, "I'm going to find Lu Wenla." Cheng Cheng's face changed. "Are you crazy? Isn't this like a sheep walking into a tiger's mouth?" Feng Na stamped her feet and said, "This won't work, that won't work. What on earth do you want?" Cheng Cheng gritted her teeth and said, "Why don't we just close for a few days and wait until we get in touch with Li Yundong? Anyway, you can't go to Lu Wenla. Otherwise, even if Lu Wenla stops, what will he do when Li Yundong comes in the future? Do you accept this favor or not? Do you want to go against him or what?" Although Feng Na's experience was shallow, she was also a smart person. After being reminded by Cheng Cheng, she immediately came to a realization. If she went and Lu Wenla gave up, then she would owe him a favor. Although it was very likely that this matter was caused by Lu Wenla, this kind of thing absolutely could not be said. Otherwise, if they shed all pretense of cordiality, then something even more terrible would happen. Once she owed a favor, how could she return it in the future? Pay a debt of love with her body? Bah, he should look in the mirror. No matter how she thought about it, in the end, this debt would still fall on Li Yundong's head. Therefore Feng Na knew that she absolutely could not go. Feng Na sighed and sat down in frustration. She pressed her hand to her forehead and said in a low voice, "Forget it. Let's close the door first. Everyone should rest for the next few days." Some of the female students who had not yet realized the seriousness of the situation, said anxiously, "Nana, if we don't open the door for a day, we will lose a lot of money." At this time Cheng Cheng turned her head and said angrily, "Money, money, all you think about is money. It's not like we don't owe you a penny. What are you afraid of?" The girl who had spoken before suddenly blushed. The girl next to her couldn't stand it anymore, so she said, "That's not true. Nana, Li Yundong has been so kind to us. We have long regarded Desanxian as one of us and another home. Now that we see such a situation, we all feel bad in our hearts." At this time Feng Na also stood up to smooth things over. She forced a smile and said, "Let's not talk about it. Let's take a few days off and wait for Li Yundong to come. Just take it as a holiday to make up for the new year." For a moment, everyone was in a low mood, but there was no good way, so they scattered in all directions. Just as they were about to leave and Feng Na and Cheng Cheng were about to close the door, they saw a group of people outside. Most of them were in suits. The man in the lead walked over and said in a non-standard Chinese accent, "Excuse me, is this Desanxian?" Cheng Cheng was in a bad mood. She opened her mouth and said rudely, "Don't you know how to look up at the plaque?" Feng Na immediately pulled her and glared at her. Then she turned back and said politely, "Yes, do you want tea? Unfortunately, today is the closing day of the shop. Can you come back another day?" Closing day? The man in the lead was none other than Ise Xinguang. He looked around strangely and saw that all the other shops were bustling, but the Desanxian was about to close. Se Xinguang felt strange in his heart, but he didn't think too much about it. He asked with a smile, "Is Wisdom King here?" "Wisdom King?" Feng Na was stunned and asked in confusion, "Who is Wisdom King?" A girl next to Se Xinguang suddenly rushed to say in an even more non-standard Chinese accent, "It's Li Yundong. Is he here?" This girl was one of the representatives of the Chables who had come with the Japanese cultivation group. She was the heiress of the Tanaka Group, a medium-sized consortium under the Mitsui Consortium. It was said to be a medium-sized consortium, but in fact, it was equivalent to the Mitsui Group. If this consortium was placed in any country, it would be a giant. The power of this consortium radiated to the business circles, political circles, gangs, and religious circles of Japan. They even manipulated the Japanese elections behind the scenes. This girl's name was Tanaka Misa, and she was the fourth heir of the Tanaka family. In the future, she would be in charge of inheriting the food business of the Tanaka Consortium. Their family had always believed in Ise Shinto, and she was very beautiful. She had a very close relationship with the goddess Ise Chuyun. She often visited the Ise Grand Shrine and often drank tea and ate with Xinguang and Chuyun. Their family had been worshipping the Ise Shinto for generations, so the relationship between the two was very close. Therefore, when Xinguang and Chuyun talked about Taoism, they did not avoid this Miss Tanaka at all. When Tanaka Misa heard that they were going to visit a person in China and that their words were full of praise for this person, she couldn't help but be very curious. She knew that Ise Chuyun was famous for being arrogant and had no respect for anyone. Ise Xinguang looked sloppy on the outside, but in fact he was reserved and conceited. It was not easy for him to praise a person. But at this time, when she heard the two of them praise Li Yundong like a flower, she couldn't help but be very curious. When she went back to investigate, she found out what earth-shattering things Li Yundong had done. He had single-handedly defeated the joint attack of the Japanese cultivation world, and then defeated the arrogant Tamamo with Suyi, the three immortals, and the cultivators of the cultivation world of China and Japan. No matter how smart a woman in the world was, no matter how high her status and background was, it was inevitable that she would be curious when she encountered such a thing. Tanaka Misa was also a beautiful young girl. After spending a long time with Ise Chuyun, it was inevitable that she would feel that all men in the world were dirt. She felt that no man could catch her eye. But at this time, Li Yundong had appeared and he was very young and handsome. God, how could I, Tanaka Misa, only know about such a legendary figure today? No, I have to go and have a look. So, she followed him and even learned a few words of China at the last minute. When she asked this question, Feng Na was stunned for a moment. Then she shook her head and looked a little sad. No, he is not here. Ah? The Japanese were suddenly stirred up. What? We came here from thousands of miles away. It's fine if we can't see Wisdom King himself at the door of his house, but we can't even see him here? Tanaka Misa was even more disappointed. She immediately asked, "Are you one of the three immortals?" It took Feng Na a lot of effort to understand the meaning of her half-baked China language. She said blankly, "One of the three immortals? Are you referring to the sixth system in this shop?" Tanaka Misa felt that her conversation with this girl was a little out of place. They had rushed all the way here and they had not been able to find Feng Na twice in a row. She was a little anxious and annoyed, but she was a businessman after all, and her observation skills were sharp. Soon she discovered that the atmosphere in the tea house was gloomy, and Feng Na was frowning. Tanaka Misa couldn't help but ask, "What happened?" However, she didn't know how to say this in China language. She just said it in Japanese and Ise Chuyun, who was next to her, translated it for her in a low voice. Feng Na saw that Ise Chuyun was extremely beautiful, and her temperament was even more outstanding. She was not inferior to Su Chan, Ziyuan, or Zhou Qin at all. She knew that a woman with such a temperament must not be an ordinary person, so she calmed down and said, "It's nothing. I'm just preparing to close the shop. As the saying goes, don't wash your dirty linen in public." If such a thing had happened in the shop, they would have to cover it up in front of their own people, let alone in front of the Japanese. However, Feng Na didn't expect that the business of Desanxian was so prosperous that it had already aroused the envy of many people. Immediately, some onlookers said gloatingly, "The tea house is about to close. How can it be okay? Hurry up and do some cleaning or else you'll drink something dirty. That would be bad." Cheng Cheng was furious when she heard this. She was about to step forward to argue, but Feng Na stepped on her foot and motioned for her not to be impulsive. At this time I.C. Xinguang also asked curiously, did something happen? We are friends of His Highness Li Yunyang, that is, the Wisdom King. Tell us, it might be helpful. Feng Na bit her lip and felt strange in her heart. His Highness? The Wisdom King? Who on earth is Li Yunyang? Her hesitation made Qing Cheng, who was next to her, anxious. She couldn't hold back her temper and rushed to tell them what had happened. When the Japanese people heard this, they immediately stirred up and whispered to each other. Tanaka Misa was even more disappointed. She hadn't expected that the so-called hero in her mind was a good-for-nothing who couldn't even manage his own business. Tanaka Misa couldn't help curling her lips and saying, he can't even manage a small tea house well. This person is not a hero at all. A chapter of 4,000 words. Yesterday's second chapter. There will be another chapter later. Chapter 906. In the eyes of people like Tanaka Misa, such a big shot who could shake the cultivation world of China and Japan couldn't even protect a small tea house and had been sealed by a group of the most ordinary law enforcers. If this happened in Japan, it would be a big deal. Zichiyun, who was standing to one side, suddenly scolded her in a low voice, Misa? Tanaka Misa snorted inwardly, turned her head and said in Japanese, isn't it? Chiyun, if this reincarnated Wisdom King is really as powerful as you say, why can't he even protect a tea house? Si Chuyun also felt a little strange, but she was a little displeased. This is China, not Japan. Don't be rude. Only then did Tanaka Misa stop talking, but she just muttered in her heart with a disapproving look on her face. At this time Si Chuyun turned to Xinguang and said, Xinguang Jun, what should we do now? Si Xinguang hadn't expected that they would encounter such a thing on this trip to China to worship the immovable Wisdom King. He pondered for a while and said, it's not good for us to interfere in the internal affairs of China. However, we have to find Wisdom King as soon as possible and tell him about our affairs and what happened here as soon as possible. Si Chuyun nodded gently and said, that's right, but where could Li Yundong be? Xinguang thought for a moment and said, find him. We must find him. After that, he looked around and said with a sigh, I didn't expect Wisdom King to be in such trouble. He must be in a very difficult and dangerous situation now. Just as the cultivators of various sects in Japan began to launch their own efforts to find Li Yundong's whereabouts, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao had already appeared in another place. The moment Zhou Qin got into the black hole, she felt that she was wrapped in a huge mass of energy. It was dark all around her, as if she was in the vast ocean, being thrown up by the stormy waves and then falling heavily. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Qin suddenly felt that her surroundings were bright and dazzling. When she squinted and slowly opened her eyes again, she found herself in a strange place. He was no longer in a sealed cave, nor was he in a bustling city. Instead, he was in a lush forest. The forest was extremely dense. At first glance, Zhou Qin felt as if she was in a green sea. The shortest tree was more than 10 meters high. It was as if she had returned to the primeval forest. Under the towering trees, there were flowers and grasses of different colors. She couldn't even name them. Zhou Qin looked around in bewilderment and couldn't help shouting, Master! Master, where are you? But after shouting for a while, he could only hear the echoes of his voice echoing throughout the empty valley. Only the mountain birds were startled, but there was no response at all. She shouted for a while, then shouted reluctantly, Li Yundong! Li Yundong! There was an immediate response. A voice came from the other side of the valley. Zhou Qin? Zhou Qin, is that you? Zhou Qin found the voice familiar. She was shocked and said, Hongling? Where are you? Sure enough, a figure flew up from the opposite mountain ridge. She was dressed in a long red robe, and her black hair was tied in a high ponytail, revealing a full and bright forehead. She had a pretty and happy face. Who else could it be but Ruan Hongling? Zhou Qin immediately rose into the air and flew into the air. She was surprised and reproachful as she said, Why are you here? Ruan Hongling snorted and said angrily, Why? Do you think that my cultivation is low and will cause you trouble and hold you back? Zhou Qin sighed and said, Even Master Wuhua doesn't know where this spirit space is. I'm afraid that even Master is in danger, let alone us. I'm afraid that if I get you into trouble, I won't be able to explain it to Ziyun. Ruan Hongling rolled her eyes, then smiled and said carelessly, Since we're here, let's take it easy. Don't worry, it's okay. Aren't we safe now? Besides, you are now a lightning retribution master. Although my strength is not good, I have powerful magical weapons to protect myself. Don't worry, I won't hold you back. Besides, one more person means one more helper and one more pair of eyes, doesn't it? Zhou Qin said helplessly, what else can I say? Do you want me to send you back? As she said this, Ruan Hongling was suddenly shocked and blurted out, ah yes, how do you think we can go back? Zhou Qin was stunned when she heard this, then shook her head and said, I don't know. Don't think about it now. Let's find Master first. Maybe if we find him we'll know how to go back. Ruan Hongling muttered in a low voice, if he knows how to go back, why didn't he go back earlier? Her words made Zhou Qin's heart sink, but then she said, maybe he is looking for the mystical silver fox? Ruan Hongling couldn't help but be a little worried. She looked around only to see the green mountains and the vast sea of green trees. She couldn't see the end at a glance and she didn't know where they were. It was more difficult to find a person than to find a needle in a haystack. Ruan Hongling sighed and said, alas, there are only two of us. How can we find him? Where can we start? Before she could finish her words, she suddenly heard a voice coming from the valley, eldest Shiji, Hongling Shiji Hongling. The voice was clear and familiar and the pronunciation was a little strange. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked at each other and shouted in unison, Lin Miao? You're here too? They looked in the direction of the voice and saw a figure waving at them from the edge of the cliff in the dense jungle. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling immediately flew over. Zhou Qin said in shock, Lin Miao, are you crazy? You haven't even reached the Zhuji phase yet. Why are you here? Lin Miao looked a little embarrassed. She said with grievance, how would I know? I just thought that the colorful divine light was very beautiful, so I reached out and touched it. When I opened my eyes again, I was already here. Zhou Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stamped her feet and said, alas you, what do you want me to say? Ruan Hongling chuckled and said, well, there's one more person to help us look for him. Hey Lin Miao, the three of us will take turns shouting. Whoever gets tired can take a break. What do you think? How could Lin Miao say no? She glanced at Zhou Qin carefully and said, eldest Shiji, I can also help you look for him. Don't be angry. Zhou Qin sighed and said, forget it. Anyway, we're here. Let's hurry up and find him. The three of them discussed for a while and then Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling flew in the air with Lin Miao, shouting and looking for him. However, there were mountains everywhere. They didn't know how long they had been flying before they reached a flat ground. The three of them shouted for a long time, but they didn't even see a ghost, let alone a figure. At this time they landed on the ground. Even though Zhou Qin's cultivation was relatively high, her mouth was a little dry. She looked around and couldn't help but feel at a loss. In such a big and strange world, where could they find him? Although Ruan Hongling's cultivation was higher than Lin Miao's among them, her foundation was the worst. She was so tired that she was panting like a dog. She put her hands on her knees and said, Zhou Qin, take a rest. I'm so tired. My throat is sore from shouting. Lin Miao looked around, only to see that there was no village or shop in front of them. Behind them was a rolling mountain range, but in the distance was a boundless plain. She really didn't know where the end was. Lin Miao was secretly worried. After looking around carefully, she suddenly pointed to the ground and said, look. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked down and saw Lin Miao pointing to a wheel mark on the ground. Ruan Hongling exclaimed, there's a wheel mark? But, this mark looks like a bicycle? As she said this, she squatted on the ground and carefully looked at the lines on it. Then she raised her head and said strangely, no, the tires of a bicycle have patterns. This one is neat and smooth like. At this time Zhou Qin said, like the wheel mark of an ox cart or a carriage. Ruan Hongling hurriedly said, yes, no matter what kind of car it is, there is a wheel mark, which means that there is someone. Let's follow this wheel mark all the way. I'm sure we can find him. Once we find him, we can ask about his whereabouts. Zhou Qin couldn't help showing a happy expression and praised, yes, what you said makes sense. Lin Miao also said happily, then let's hurry up. The three women's spirits were roused, and they immediately pulled themselves together, following the wheel marks to chase after it. They chased all the way, but they didn't know how long they had been chasing. They only felt that when the sun was burning they were a little exhausted. Even Zhou Qin, who had always been mentally tough, couldn't bear it anymore. When she was about to give up, she suddenly saw a small black spot in the distance. Zhou Qin looked over and saw that the black spot looked like a city. She was overjoyed and quickly said, come on, look over there. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao looked up and were overjoyed. They gathered all their remaining strength and rushed straight to the place where the city was. At this time they seemed to be very close, but they had been flying for a long time. When they landed and walked all the way to the foot of the city, they were suddenly stunned. In front of them was an incomparably huge and majestic city. The city walls were more than 50 meters tall, and the city walls stretched out in all directions, as if they were going to extend to the end of the world. On the east side of the city walls, there were 9 huge arches. The one in the middle was the largest, more than 10 meters tall, and wide enough for 10 horses to pass through at the same time. At the entrance of the city stood a towering stone statue, more than 30 meters tall. This stone statue was a scene of a tall and sturdy man fighting barehanded with a lion and a fierce tiger. The scene was very lifelike and it looked as if it was alive. Zhou Qin walked to the city gate and saw that there were people coming and going everywhere. These people were wearing very simple linen clothes, but they were dressed like ancient people. Some were riding ox carts, some were riding carriages, and some were riding some strange beast that she couldn't tell the name of. These people gathered together like a trickle, flowing from all directions into this majestic city. Although she was a strange woman with high cultivation, standing in front of this majestic city, she suddenly felt that she was as small as an ant. However, this was not what shocked her the most. What stunned her, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao the most was that there were 2 ancient characters written on the gate plate of this tall and majestic city, which read, Zhaoge. There was still one more chapter in the afternoon or evening, but it should be in the afternoon. Chapter 907. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling stood at the foot of Zhaoge city in a daze. They rubbed their eyes hard and said in unison, Zhaoge? Zhaoge, the capital of the Shang dynasty? Zhou Qin stood there in a daze, her mouth opened so wide that her fist could be stuffed in. Lin Miao, who was beside her, also stammered, We came to 3,000 years ago? Although Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling felt that it was absurd, Ruan Hongling soon reacted. She clapped her hands and said, Oh, I know. The azure glass mirror has the ability to penetrate time and space, and the purple gold Luo Yupan has the ability to set up parallel worlds. Did these 2 powerful magical weapons bring us to the Shang dynasty 3,000 years ago? Lin Miao, who was standing to one side, asked in a daze, But why is it not the Xia dynasty, the Zhou dynasty or any other dynasty but the Shang dynasty? Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked at each other. The 2 of them suddenly gasped at Lin Miao's question. Zhou Qin couldn't help but say in a cold voice, Could it be, because of Su Daji? Su Daji was a household name in China. Even a half-baked person like Lin Miao knew her name. Lin Miao was shocked and cried out involuntarily, Ah? Su Daji? Is she the 9-tailed celestial fox? What's her relationship with the mystical silver fox? The few of them looked at each other and secretly felt that it was possible. Otherwise, why did they have to come to this era? In the eyes of cultivators, although reincarnation was mysterious and magical, it was not something unacceptable. Regardless of whether it was Taoism or Buddhism, they all believed that reincarnation existed. Bubble. Book. *****. However, Taoists said that reincarnation was ascension, corpse disintegration, and soldier's disintegration. The most famous of them was the 5th ancestor of Zen in China. He was a Taoist priest when he was alive, but after cultivating to a certain extent, he felt that he could no longer cultivate. He had reached a bottleneck, so he turned to Buddhism for help. At this time, the 5th patriarch Hong Ren found the 4th patriarch of the Zen sect, Daoxin, and said that he wanted to become his disciple. But Daoxin thought that Hong Ren was too old, an old man with a white beard, so he said to him, You are too old, I can't teach you. Therefore, 5th ancestor Hong Ren immediately disintegrated in front of Daoxin. After a few years, he reincarnated into a little baby and came to find 4th ancestor Daoxin, saying that he had become younger and that he could teach him now. In addition, the earliest cultivator, Peng Zhu, and the founder of the Wudong sect, Zhang Sanfeng, had lived for 800 years and lived through the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. People had also seen traces of him during the spring and autumn period. The other was born during the southern Song dynasty and lived through the Yuan and Ming dynasties, living for more than 400 years. In the eyes of ordinary people, these 2 people were longevity stars who were good at maintaining good health. But in fact, cultivators themselves knew that these 2 people must have been dead many times, or they had been reincarnated several times. Otherwise, any tangible matter in the world would never be destroyed, and the human body was no exception. The cultivators of both Buddhism and Taoism cultivated the spirit, and the body was just a carrier. In the world, there was only an indestructible yang spirit Jinshin, and there was no immortal body. As the saying goes, everyone has died since ancient times. These were all famous cases recorded in the history of Buddhism and Taoism. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling naturally knew about them, so they only expressed shock at the beginning when this thing suddenly appeared 3,000 years ago, but they soon came to their senses. They just thought about the relationship between the mystical silver fox and Sudaji in their hearts. Zhou Qin couldn't help looking up at Zhaoga City. It seemed that there was a beautiful and strange figure hidden behind the tall city wall. The power left by the mystical silver fox and Su Yi seemed to be still vivid in her mind. Zhou Qin thought for a moment and said, "Anyway, let's find a way to find Master first." Ruan Hongling nodded and said, "That's right. It's a pity that I don't know what era it is now." As she spoke, she saw an old man in a coarse shirt passing by. She grabbed the old man and asked, "Old man, may I ask you what year is it now? How many years has King Zhou been in power?" Ruan Hongling knew that the capital of the Shang dynasty Zhaoga was in the period of King Zhou of Shang. This city was called Zhaoga, so the king in power at this time must be King Zhou, but she didn't know if Daji had entered the palace. When the old man was pulled by her, he just looked at them strangely, but as soon as he heard the word King Zhou, his face suddenly changed as if he had seen a ghost. He broke free from her hand, turned around and fled into the city. As the old man ran, he turned his head to look at them as if he was afraid that they would run away. Ruan Hongling looked at the old man in confusion and shouted, "Hey, why are you running?" As she said this, she turned her head and said to Zhou Qin in confusion, "Zhou Qin, did we scare him away because our clothes were too strange?" Zhou Qin frowned slightly and felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what was wrong, so she said, "It's possible. Who knows what people in this dynasty talk like?" While the two of them were guessing suspiciously, Lin Miao, who was beside them, suddenly pointed to the city gate and said, "Look." Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked in the direction of her finger, only to see the old man running all the way to the guards at the gate, pointing at them while looking at them. Lin Miao said worriedly, "Did this person go to the police?" Ruan Hongling laughed and said, "There are no police in this era. Call the police? It's okay. Maybe he saw that we were dressed strangely, so he came up to ask." As soon as she finished speaking, a group of soldiers walked out of the door. They wore bronze armor and held bronze spears in their hands. The person in the lead wore a bronze helmet and held a 3-foot-long bronze sword. He was obviously the leader of the group. The man was tall and burly. He came to Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao, pointed at the three of them and shouted, "Arrest these rebels." His accent was a little strange with a slight Hunan accent, but Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao all understood it. The two of them were slightly shocked and Lin Miao asked in confusion, "GFA? Is it King Wen of Zhou?" Zhou Qin turned to look at her and said with a wry smile, "You've read a lot of books." "Yes, it's King Wen of Zhou. If I'm not mistaken, King Wen of Zhou should have rebelled by now." Ruan Hongling also said curiously, "Why are they so sure that we are Ji Chang's party? I don't even know what Ji Chang looks like. Isn't he the biggest monster in the world?" When the leader of the guards saw the three of them chattering as if they didn't take him seriously at all, he immediately became furious and shouted to his subordinates, "Take them down." These guards immediately surrounded Zhou Qin and the other two. Although it was a little inexplicable, Zhou Qin was skilled and bold. Relying on her high cultivation, she didn't take these people seriously. In addition, they found that she had come to the last years of the Shang dynasty through the glass mirror and the purple gold luoyu plate, so they were more curious. Their previous nervousness and worry had been diluted a lot. Ruan Hongling also knew that these soldiers did not pose a threat to them, so she said with a smile, "Why are you so fierce? We are not Ji Chang's party. Is King Zhou still here? Please take us to see him." The leader of the guards flew into a rage. "How dare you say that you are not Ji Chang's traitor? Catch them and cut them into pieces." The soldiers shouted in unison and stabbed at Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao with their spears. Zhou Qin frowned and was about to make a move when she saw Ruan Hongling snort. A red light flashed beside her and swept across the copper spears in the hands of these soldiers like lightning. Suddenly, with a cracking sound, the copper spears were all cut off by Ruan Hongling's powerful magical weapon. Ruan Hongling's powerful magical weapon was similar to Ziyuan's, but it was a reduced version. Not only was it smaller, but it was also square, like a small and exquisite handkerchief. These soldiers were shocked when their weapons were cut off by the red caltrop handkerchief. They all retreated in unison. Ruan Hongling smiled proudly and said, "How about it? Do you still want to take us back? Hey, take us to King Zhou obediently." The leader of the guards was shocked and couldn't help but take a step back. He shouted at Ruan Hongling fiercely, "Which sect are you from? How dare you make an enemy of my king? Aren't you afraid that your body and soul will be destroyed?" Ruan Hongling looked up to the sky and laughed. "You scared me to death. If you have the ability, come at me." Zhou Qin said in a low voice, "Hey, aren't you being too arrogant?" Ruan Hongling tilted her head slightly, chuckled and said, "I have my own brilliant plan. Don't worry." Zhou Qin thought for a moment and asked, "Do you want to make a big deal out of this so that Master will notice it?" Ruan Hongling smiled and said, "You are indeed the famous human immortal Zhenren Zhou. You are amazing. You know what I am thinking." Zhou Qin smiled and said, "That's a good idea, but..." Before she could finish her words, she saw the soldiers retreat like a tide. Even the people at the city gate had left. She was slightly stunned. Just as she felt that something was wrong, she saw many people suddenly fly out of the city. Each of them was dressed in strange clothes and holding various powerful magical weapons. The leader was dressed in a white silk robe with one arm exposed. He was holding a golden iron whip in his hand. There was an angry round eye between his eyebrows, which was emitting 3 feet of divine light. He looked majestic and powerful. Zhou Qin looked over and saw that the leader was shrouded in an extremely strong force. Although she was a master of thunder retribution, when this person's eyes swept over her, she immediately felt the hair all over her body stand on end, and a chill ran down her spine. Although Ruan Hongling's cultivation was not high, she was also a knowledgeable person. She looked at this group of people with her mouth agape and tongue tied. She saw that the leader's cultivation was extremely high, even comparable to Li Yundong's. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded and said, "No wait. This is a master at the 9th level of heaven." But this was not the end. Before Ruan Hongling could react, she saw another 100 people flying up from behind these people, all of them surrounded by a layer of golden light. Ruan Hongling was scared silly. "Oh my god, are they all golden bodies? When did the golden body become so worthless?" Zhou Qin was also so shocked that her face turned ashen. She didn't even know how to speak. When she met a great master at the level of thunder retribution, she still dared to go forward and fight. But this time, a master at the 9th level of heaven came down, and another 6 masters of thunder retribution came, followed by more than 100 golden body fighters. How could they fight? Were they courting death? Even the reincarnation of Auspicious Sky couldn't withstand the siege of so many people. Not to mention the reincarnation of Auspicious Sky, even the mystical silver fox couldn't withstand it. Lin Miao's face was as white as paper. He said, "It's over. I didn't expect that I would die 3,000 years ago. I wonder if anyone will be able to find my relics after 3,000 years. At this moment, the 3 of them didn't even have the consciousness to resist. They were ready to be captured, but at this moment, a figure flashed to their side, and a familiar voice shouted, "3 idiots, hurry up and leave." Chapter 908. When Zhou Qin heard this voice, she was overjoyed. She was very familiar with this voice, which made her worried. She immediately shouted, "Master?" When Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao saw Li Yundong appear beside them in an instant, they were both overjoyed. Lin Miao said loudly, "Master, we finally found you." Ruan Hongling laughed and said, "You came at the right time. Let's teach these guys a lesson together." Li Yundong glared at her angrily and grabbed her and Lin Miao in his arms. After saying this, he turned around and ran away. Zhou Qin run? In Zhou Qin's impression, she had never seen Li Yundong turn around and run away when he met an enemy, especially now that he had obtained the real body of Wisdom King. His strength was incredibly strong, but he didn't even fight. Zhou Qin was stunned. What's going on? Zhou Qin was stunned for a moment and didn't react. At this time, Su Chan's figure also appeared out of thin air and answered crisply. Her face was full of anxiety. She pulled Zhou Qin up and said, "Sister Zhou Qin, don't stay here. Let's go. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." Zhou Qin was pulled by her and flew more than 10 meters away in the blink of an eye. As soon as she left the ground, she saw the golden iron whip in the hand of the man with another eye between his eyebrows fall with a bang, and in an instant, the ground sank deeply. This happened suddenly and without warning. 1 second, the golden whip was still in the man's hand, and the next second, it had already smashed in the place where she had been. If Su Chan hadn't pulled her, she would have been smashed into meat paste. Zhou Qin's body shook and she cried out in horror, "Who is this person? What kind of powerful magical weapon is this? It's amazing." Su Chan didn't have time to say anything more to her. She just gritted her teeth and chased after Li Yundong's figure like crazy. After they flew more than 100 miles in one breath, the people behind them gave up the chase. The man with the golden whip snorted angrily and took the lead to fly back. Li Yundong didn't dare to be careless. He held Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao under his armpits and flew for more than 100 miles. Then he stopped and shouted angrily with lingering fear, "Why are you guys here? Why are you so arrogant? Do you know where this is and what era it is? Do you want to die?" Ruan Hongling's face and ears turned red as she struggled with all her might. She didn't know if it was because her blood was not flowing smoothly because of Li Yundong's arm, or because she was angry out of humiliation. She shouted, "Put me down." Only then did Li Yunyang loosen his grip. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao cried out at the same time and fell to the ground. Ruan Hongling jumped up and said angrily with her hands on her hips, "Hey, the three of us risked our lives to find you. It's okay that you didn't say a word of thanks when you saw us, but you even scolded us." "Are you kidding me?" Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Who told you to come to me? Isn't this just adding 1 yuan? Ruan Hongling remembered that her Shiji had been so worried about Li Yundong, and that she had come to this inexplicable 3,000 years ago to save him, but this bastard didn't appreciate it at all. She was furious. Ruan Hongling wiped her eyes and said angrily, all right. We're useless. We'll help you. You're very capable. You don't need others to help you." As she said this, she said to Lin Miao, who had gotten up and was patting the dust off his body, "Hey Lin Miao, let's go. Let's go back. Some people here don't need us." Lin Miao raised his head blankly. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Su Chan, who had been watching Ruan Hongling and Li Yundong quarreling, didn't know how to persuade them. But at this time Lin Miao, who was caught in the middle, pretended to be stupid, suddenly made her laugh. Lin Miao was very good at Chinese. How could he not understand at this time? Ruan Hongling was exasperated. "Lin Miao, why are you pretending? Don't you understand what I said?" Lin Miao smiled embarrassedly and said, "I just fell and was in a daze. I didn't hear you. What did you say just now?" Ruan Hongling stamped her feet and said, "Well, you can't get along with me either. You have a different mind. If you don't go, I'll go." After that, she angrily stomped her feet, turned around and left. Li Yundong looked at her back and laughed angrily. He shouted, "Hey, where are you going? Do you know how to go back?" Ruan Hongling stopped in her tracks and immediately turned her head angrily. "It's none of your business. Weren't you very fierce just now? How could we be idiots?" Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You still say you're not? I think all three of you are. You called their King Zhou in front of the guards. He has a name Dxan. He's not called King Zhou. This is another name given by King Wen of Zhou and Ji Chang in order to slander King Zhou. It's just like how Emperor Yongzheng called his younger brothers Akaina and Saxiai in anger." Ruan Hongling was stunned again. She said unconvinced, "How would I know that King Wen of Zhou had already rebelled at this time?" The two of them quarreled fiercely. At this time Zhou Qin couldn't help but stand up and say, Okay, don't be angry. Master is also worried about our safety. We'll be there soon." As she said this, she walked over and took Ruan Hongling's hand. "Don't be angry. I think Master is afraid that if something happens to you, he won't be able to help Ziyuan." As she said this, she turned to Li Yundong and said with a smile, "Isn't that right, Master?" As she spoke, she winked at Li Yundong. However, Ruan Hongling didn't buy it. She sneered and said, "Come on, don't talk about it. You're the same as my Shiji. You're all different." "Humph, you weren't as powerful as me before, but now you're powerful enough to show off." Her words were unforgiving, but in the end she didn't take another step forward. Ruan Hongling also knew that if she got separated from Li Yundong and the others in this unfamiliar place, she would probably stay in this damn place for the rest of her life and never be able to go back. However, Ruan Hongling had always been sharp-tongued. Although she admitted defeat in her heart, she refused to admit defeat verbally. Li Yundong also knew her temper, so he smiled bitterly and said, Okay, it's all my fault, okay? Ruan Hongling had been ridiculed by him. Li Yundong had no choice but to turn his face and say helplessly to Zhou Qin, Why did you think of coming here? How did you get here? Zhou Qin looked at Li Yundong fixedly and said, Master, you and Su Chan suddenly disappeared. Do you know how worried Zi Yuan and I were? We thought you had. As she said this, her voice trembled slightly, but she couldn't continue. Su Chan, who was standing to one side, also tried to persuade him. Yundong, they have good intentions. Don't blame them. There is strength in numbers. If we work together, we might be more powerful. Li Yundong glared at her and said, More powerful? Then why did we run just now? When Su Chan saw that Li Yundong was speaking softly to Ruan Hongling and Zhou Qin, she immediately pouted and muttered in a low voice, You're so annoying. You only know how to be fierce to me. Li Yundong ignored her little girl's thoughts. He turned his head and said loudly to Zhou Qin, Do you know who the man with the golden whip just now was? His loud voice seemed to be directed at Zhou Qin, but in fact, it was for Ruan Hongling who was next to him. Zhou Qin naturally knew and asked cooperatively, Who is that person? Although Ruan Hongling was indignant, she also pricked up her ears curiously. Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin speechlessly and said, Grand Tutor Wen, this person is Grand Tutor Wen. Zhou Qin was shocked. Grand Tutor Wen? Is Grand Tutor Wen so powerful? At this time Ruan Hongling had no time to be at odds with Li Yundong. She said in surprise, Then is he the legendary Golden Whip of God? Li Yundong nodded. Grand Tutor Wen is a great master who is only one step away from becoming a golden immortal. If I fight with him alone, I only have a 50% chance of winning. Don't you see that he has so many powerful helpers behind him? Moreover, do you know how many masters there are in Zhaoga City? Moreover, do you know that sect leader Tong Tian, heavenly primogenitor, and Taoist Juanti are all watching from the side? Zhou Qin and Lin Miao listened with their eyes wide open. They didn't feel very shocked, but Ruan Hongling, an inner disciple of an orthodox cultivator, was so shocked that her mouth was wide open. Tong, sect leader Tong Tian, heavenly primogenitor, and Taoist Juanti are also here? Why didn't I see them? The name Taoist Juanti sounded a little strange. He was originally the second sect leader of Western Taoism. Later, he abandoned Taoism and became a Buddhist, so he became the famous Master Bodhi in the future. On the other hand, the names Tong Tian sect leader and Yuanshi Qianzuan were simply too deafening. Ruan Hongling herself was a genuine Taoist disciple, and Taoism worshipped the three clear emperors, namely the Grand Clear Taishang Laojun, the Yinqing Yuanshi Qianzuan, and the Prime Clear Tong Tian sect leader. But two of the three main gods had come at once. What did this mean? This was equivalent to believers of Jesus Christ seeing God, believers of Muslims seeing Allah, believers of Buddhists seeing Buddha himself. Li Yundong said to Ruan Hongling with a wry smile, I can feel their existence but you can't. Ruan Hongling also knew that if she could sense the existence of sect leader Tong Tian and heavenly primogenitor, then these two guys would not be the three gods of Taoism, but imitations. Ruan Hongling was a little confused and said, But, why did they come here instead of staying in the Purple Cloud Palace? Li Yundong looked at Ruan Hongling with a strange face and said, Haven't you figured it out yet? I wonder what dynasty this is? The Shang dynasty. Ruan Hongling said in surprise. Li Yundong said, Yes, don't you know that King Wen of Zhou Jichang has rebelled and is about to attack Zhaoga? The War of God's Investiture is in full swing. The War of God's Investiture? Zhou Qin and Lin Miao suddenly said in unison. Li Yundong nodded and said with a serious face, That's right. Zhou Qin's heart skipped a beat and she said thoughtfully, Could it be that, the mystical silver fox came to this era on purpose? Li Yundong shook his head and said, I don't know about that. However, if I'm not wrong, Su Daji should be the previous incarnation of the mystical silver fox. The reason why the mystical silver fox came here is probably to see Su Daji's strength and body when she was defeated and fled, and then to make a comeback. There will be another update in a minute that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.